list, guys, lined up. These are all the guys. There's more in there.
This generation is scary.
It kind of infuriates me, an industry that has historically and still does exploit women.
Honestly, pathetic.
We cannot be this hungry, surely.
I'm going to be sleeping with 23 barely legal 18-year-olds.
Is that real or what? That is not real, is it? She's like taking the piss.
I don't discriminate. Girls, do what you want to do. But this is mad.
Let's be real, man. This generation has normalised a lot of nonsense.
You might know me as the girl who's been run through by 101 guys all in one day. I feel like I was made for this.
So let's talk about how Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue had sex with 101 men for their OF channels. We're talking about the pleasures of sex work, the integration of the porn industry and social media, the ever-changing sex industry, and also the porn addiction problem.
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So Wet, So Dry. I'm one of your hosts, Fiji, like the island, like the water. Lately, my sexual fantasies have gotten a lot more wholesome, and I work in social media and marketing.
And I'm your other host, Autumn. Like this season, I have a new crush, and I'm about to make it my whole personality, and I work in entertainment. If you guys are new here to So Wet, So Dry, what we do is we explore duality through deep diving topics about sex, relationships, and personal identity, all where internet trends and reality collide. We post polls every single week on our Instagram story to give you guys an opportunity to have your voice heard in the episode. So make sure you're following us at So Wet, So Dry. The O's are zeros. And whatever you're doing right now, whatever platform you're on, it would mean so much to us if you could subscribe, like the video if you do like it. You can rate us on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, things like that. It takes 2 seconds. And if you like the episode, that can be your gift to us. So thank you in advance.
Yes, and our channel is all about community, so make sure you guys comment to keep the conversation going. We will wrap up the episode talking about what we're wet, dry. With what we're wet, dry, and still a little bit confused about the topic.
So as I said, we are talking about how Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue, content creators, had sex with 101 men, like everyone's fucking freaking out about. And we're gonna talk about it, offer a new perspective. We have both been sex workers in the past. We are pro sex work. We are looking to build a pro sex work community on So Wet, So Dry. So we wanna offer a new perspective than the harsh rhetoric that we've been getting online, on TikTok, on YouTube.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say, if you guys are listening and you're a little bit like turned off by that, if you thought you were clicking on a video that was gonna be like, oh my God, like they fucked 100 people, like how the fuck, just like sit with us for a second. Just like take a deep breath, like think about it. Like we're just offering a different perspective. You never know what you'll think by the end of the episode.
It's not that deep, exactly. So we're gonna start with the book Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Maree Brown. This book has been sitting in my library, and Fiji was like, pleasure activism, like that sounds like something that could be good. I was like, what the fuck do you mean? How would that be good for a sex work episode? Guys, I don't know. I don't know.
What did you think it was about?
I don't know.
Going to the beach?
I had no idea what it was about, obviously. But anyways, it's phenomenal. It's basically a collection of essays. And I'm going to intro it more a little bit later. There's a lot in it on sex work specifically, so we are going to talk about that a lot in this episode. So I want to start us there, get us in that zone already before we go into Lily Phillips fucking 101 men and everyone's opinions on it. So this is what we're going to start with. Sex work takes what women and feminine people of all genders are expected to do for free and monetizes it. Be sexualized by cisgender men. Validate their masculinity. Give them attention. Smile. Flirt. Make them feel important and wanted even if they're tedious. Create intimacy and hold vulnerability. Pour time and money into white middle-class beauty standards, and have sex that's mostly focused on men's pleasure. Sex workers do all of those things, just not for free. And even as a sex worker, like this really opened my eyes. Like I knew that. And I knew that, you know, to even be a sex worker, it's like, would sex work exist without patriarchy? It's like, it probably would, but it wouldn't be to the extreme that it is.
Yeah.
And it's like, not to hate on other women, but it's like, yeah, y'all do that for free every single day.
Right.
And it's like, not even necessarily your fault, but it's like, we're going to be working through this episode. It's like the difference between like sex workers and non-sex workers. Like they're just going to work too, and they're profiting off of like this fucked patriarchal system, but like making it their life and like being happy with that, you know? And it's like, I just love how she blatantly says like sex work takes what women and femmes go through every single day under patriarchy and just get paid for it.
And makes them pay. Yeah. It reminds me of that famous, I don't know if it's a tweet or it was on a podcast or whatever, where the girl was like, oh, like you're mad at me for fucking the weed man for weed, but you're fucking the text man for text or something like that. Like exactly, like we look at like women who have sex for money or do sexual things for money as like bad, but it's like in the society that we're in, like a lot of times sexual relationships, intimate relationships have those same dynamics, but you're not benefiting from it at all.
At all. Yeah, you're actually being extremely hurt by it.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously the sex industry is not perfect, but if you look at it just like that, it's really like introspective, like to think about like as a non-sex worker and even someone that has. There is nothing natural or effortless about this labor. Sexual pleasure is valuable and life-giving, and it takes work, real work. To acknowledge the work of sexual pleasure doesn't diminish it. It just honors sexual pleasure as involving skills, valuable, worthy of being paid skills. The difference between sex workers and non-sex working women and femmes is just that sex workers get to admit that sex is work and get paid for it. Since it's too late to worry about being called a whore, they also get to enjoy the pleasures of getting paid for it. People are always asking sex workers, do you feel pleasure at work? Do you ask your nail tech that? Your barista? People obsess about how sex workers feel about sex, not how they feel about work. But the pleasure of sex work is the pleasure of surviving, thriving, and having food on the table in an apartment that's all your own. I've been a sex work activist for over a decade and have organized with badasses in the biz from Bangkok, Thailand to Sydney, Australia. And from street-based trans women of color to European migrants working under the table at strip clubs to bi guys hustling on Rent Boy, what I've seen is that sex workers aren't all that much different from other workers. Many workers are expected to make someone happy, be pleasing, and look good while doing it. Inside and outside of the sex industry, sex is a tool for economic survival and mobility. Paid and unpaid sex have a lot in common, but you'd never know that when you look at the media's overheated fantasies about the sex industry. Instead, we see the same lurid, sensationalistic images of cisgender women in peril, waiting to be rescued into the safety of domesticity. Meanwhile, unpaid sex, especially unpaid heterosexual sex, that apparently happens in a paradise of mutual pleasure. Healthy sexualities and individual choice. The truth is more complicated.
I love this. And we've said this, I think in our like stripper stories episode, our sugar daddies episode, humiliation content. And it's like, it's also okay to get pleasure from your job and doing work. Like when I was a waitress, I loved to like, you know, there were times I fucking hated it because it's a job and it sucks. But there were times I was also like, I love like serving people and meeting new people and all of that. So it's like, we love to put sex work as this thing where it's like, oh, you're either doing it to struggle to get out of the trenches, or oh, you're just like a whore, you have trauma or all of this stuff. But it's like, exactly, it's just like a barista, it's just like a waitress, like a nurse.
But no one will ever see it like that. Like no one, like it's just like people think sex and like the way that like sex is just in our country and like in the world, like it's like they can't see it like that, but it's not the same. It's sex. Like they just don't see it like that. And I don't know how to get people to see it like that, because I feel like people look at us and you're like, I liked when I was waitressing. Like, people are gonna think that's fucking crazy, dude. Like, they don't see that comparison, like, at all.
Yeah.
At all.
And I think it's because of patriarchy, and it's a profession dominated by women and has been.
Right.
But it's also because patriarchy that it's dominated by women. Like you said, if we didn't have patriarchy and we lived in a society that was like all genders, like equal, whatever, there would be more sex working men, trans women, non-binary
like,
people.
all bodies.
Everyone. And it would be much more diverse. But like, because of and a lot of the tropes that women play into in sex work is the fantasy of dominant masculinity and submissive, you know? So it's like.
Yeah, right. So let's get into it. So who is Lily Phillips? We're going to put her on the screen. Super cute. She's from Derbyshire, England. She's 23 years old. She started OnlyFans.
She's so young.
I know.
Oh my goodness. She looks older, but I feel like she's British, right?
Yeah.
Their aesthetics are different. Like, I feel like
Totally
a lot of
different.
times they look older. Yeah.
I know. And it's like, yeah, the whole Love Island plastic surgery thing.
Yeah,
like that
but
whole
she
thing.
doesn't look like
but
that.
In general,
like, her face looks young and stuff. It's just more like the blonde hair, like her makeup style. I don't know.
She looks grown,
Yeah,
like for sure.
yeah.
And in the interviews we're gonna watch, like she looks grown. She seems like grown. She started OnlyFans at 19 and then started porn. Like she's on Pornhub like at 22, so like a year ago. And she basically started as a micro influencer. So starting as a micro influencer and switching to OnlyFans is like a lot easier because you already have like an audience. So she was able to really make money like extremely quickly versus someone that like didn't have an audience and just started making content. And she said from a young age, like she's always felt really sexually liberated. Like she wasn't necessarily always drawn to sex work, but like something within the realm. Like she always felt comfortable with sex and like that sort of thing, which is like similar to what we've said, honestly. Like we've always just felt that.
From like
a
young-ish age too. I feel like around
low key,
the time,
bitch.
like,
I told you I was sucking titties like in elementary school.
Like as soon as I started like kissing people, like, you know, like just flirty, just like you have that free spirit. Yeah.
Right. And economically, she was kind of like, this is the next step for me in monetizing my content. Like this is like an economic move that I want to make.
Yeah.
So it's like
it was
feeling
a business
sexual and also business. Exactly. So basically the whole thing is that she and also Bonnie Blue, both of them have been like making records in porn and like going for records. She essentially had sex with 101 men in like a really short amount of time. Like she was like having sex for like 14 hours, like consecutively, like one back to back to back to back. And everyone's got their panties in a fucking twist about it. You know what I mean? But that's what she's doing. Similar things have been done before.
More people, right?
Yeah, bitch. Like crazy amounts. And like, I think like right now, one of the records is like Lisa Sparks for like 919 guys in like
how long?
In 24 hours.
24 hours?
In 24 hours. And so Lily Phillips actually wants to beat it. Has been making TikToks as like she wants to beat it. Like she wants to go for 1,000 and she's like planning to do that by February of 2025. So
and I saw
stay tuned, I guess.
I saw some of her TikToks talking about like the after, and she was saying how it was like they were running out of time, so they cut the like, it's short. Like it's not like she's like going for 30 minutes with each dude. It's like they put it in, they got a couple pumps and they're kicked out, and it's the next one. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
So let's watch this quick compilation about her and her journey.
I went viral for letting 23 guys run a train on me with my friend Bonnie. Now that video is actually out now, so if you want to check that out, you know where to go. But if you want to be a part of the next one, I'm actually doing 100 guys in one day. So head on over to my Twitter to find out how to apply. Morning, so today is the day where I get run through by 100 guys. How many condoms I have, for fuck's sake. I think this is all I'm going to do with my hair and makeup today. Just a bit of bronzer and a bit of blush. I'm running a little bit late, I think, but it'll be totally fine because the boys can't start without me. Oh, not looking too bad. I'm almost there now. We have to a little bit of a late start, but that's fine.
I've got time to make it back up.
How are you doing? How's it going so far? Good. How many are we on?
I think only 8.
8 guys?
Only 8, not
You
not
enjoying
enough.
yourself?
Yeah, I am actually. First group scene done. That was a lot of fun. And now I'm on to number 16.
Currently 7 p.m. About, I'd say, I think about 70 people through. This is what the room is looking like. Not in the best state. We've kind of got things everywhere. Someone brought me a rose. Oh my god, I forgot to vlog this. Someone brought me a fucking rose. He was the sweetest boy ever. Got ran through by 101 men. And my eyes are still recovering from all the bodily fluids that went in them. So yesterday I got ran through by 101 guys. Don't mind this, someone actually bit my lip. But last night I didn't end up having a shower. Well, I didn't wash my hair in the shower just because I was too tired. But I want to show you guys the aftermath of what it's like to get ran through by that many guys in one day. I feel like I've been hit by a bus. I am so achy. It went on for how many hours? We went from 9 a.m. till about 11 p.m. I think it was.
So I will say, just after watching that, the parts that were kind of off-putting were her eyes and her lip, because it's like, it shows like what it's physical, like it's hard on your body. And like, I know like I've been in the strip club before where like people have done something that's like a little bit uncomfortable, and like biting her lip is like a little bit like, is that like called for, you know, like especially to leave a mark like that is a little much. But she didn't like really comment on it, so you know I don't want to like.
She didn't really comment on it, and I literally thought the exact same thing. Like I've had things like go wrong, like not even something like. There's been times some people intentionally like wanted to like harm me in some sort of way, like in a kinky way. But sometimes it's like people would like have an accident and like scratch me a little bit too hard and be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's like things happen like while you're having sex, like regardless if it's paid or not. But like,
because it made me think of like how people like to bite you. And that was all outside of the strip club. Those were just regular hookups.
Literally all outside. No one ever bit me in the strip club because I made damn sure they didn't. But yeah, like things go wrong. And so it's like, I don't know. And like, maybe it just like didn't go wrong for her. Like maybe she wanted to get her lip bitten. Like maybe she wanted that. It's like, we don't know. Maybe he asked and she said yes. And like, she's like not proud of it, but it's just like, yeah, like this is a part of the job and like, I'm okay with it. But I do think as women and as like me and you, like people that have gone through things, it's like, it is kind of like a little bit uncomfortable to see that. And it's like, well, why did she put that in her TikTok opposed to like other things? But it's like, I don't want to police her because like if someone wanted to like have BDSM sex and like enjoyed being like punched in the face, like some people genuinely like it. And then they came on TikTok and were like, oh my God, I had crazy sex. Like, look at my black eye. Like, would that be like horrific for survivors to see and like have an impact? And would people go crazy? Yes, but it's like
kink, and it's
I want to look at it like, well, if they don't feel that way though, like let's not put that on them. You know?
Exactly, because she didn't say anything about it. She was just like, don't mind my lip, like someone
and
bit
we'll
me,
never
like
know.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like it also shows like the work side of things. Like she's like, I like how she's vlogging it as like this is my journey, this is the behind the scenes of like what really goes on. It kind of like breaks that like fourth wall of like, oh, like if you're subscribed to her, you watch her porn, you might not even see her as a full human. But with her vlogging this, you get the behind the scenes and you're like, okay, this is a real person and not just like a fuck pocket. Like,
and that's
so fucked up, but you know,
I know,
what
but
they think.
exactly. And that's why it's a great marketing tool. And it's like for that reason and like her subscribers, it's great. But then she has all these assholes on the internet being like, why the fuck are you making a day in the life as like a porn creator? And they're like so upset about it, like so upset about it. And so it's like the fact that you can see that is like amazing. Like that is literally what it is. Like I'm sure or she just wants to document it for herself. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, we don't know everything, and we do not need to know everything.
Yeah.
Like, all we are going to know is like what she gives us. And at the end of the day, if she was happy with it, then we should be too. Like, we shouldn't put anything on her. And if you are triggered, like, just unfollow her. Like, I literally, like, don't watch them. Like, I hate people, dude. Like, I really do. But we asked y'all, like, have you seen any of this? Because a bunch of her content has gone viral, not just one TikTok,
on Twitter,
like a lot
TikTok,
of them.
YouTube,
across platforms.
everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. So we basically asked you guys if you know about any of this. And apparently you guys don't, because 76% said no and 24% said yes. And even though you guys didn't know, you guys had a lot to say about it. So I can tell that it's a topic that y'all are interested in. And so that's why we're here to, like, you know, tell you all about it. So I watched 2 podcast episodes interviewing Lily Phillips. The first one was the RTM podcast show, and the second one was The Spills. And basically, you know, the first one, like, they were definitely, like, the vibes were a little bit different. Like, they were asking about her virginity and just stuff that, like, didn't really matter. Like, when did you lose your virginity? And, like, she lost her virginity and, like, made OnlyFans, like, a month later. And they were, like, so shook by that and, like, asking her why. And, like, why do you like sex work? Like, why do you do it? Like, that typical rhetoric. But the second one, it's like, bro, it's like Gay Star News, like something that like hosts The Spills. And like the woman, like, I feel like she identifies as like a pro sex work feminist. So like it kind of hit a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like she was like a lot, like she was, I mean, not like they weren't accepting her, but it's like they were more like curious, like critique vibes. And this was more like kind of like a safe space, in my opinion. The second one, The Spills. But they talked about a lot of different stuff.
So they were like supportive of her, or they weren't, or they were questioning.
Like, I don't know.
It was
dude.
weird.
Like they weren't. It was like neutral. Like I don't really know. And it was also like it was a man and a woman, but like mostly the guy. Like the woman didn't say much, so it's just different when like a guy is interviewing
I feel
her
like
about
the
it.
thing with that, like just the way you broke down the difference between the podcasts, it makes me think like the first one with the guy sounds like, and I'm sure he's British, right? Is he British?
Yeah.
So it's different because it's not America. But like I'm thinking like of like the whatever podcast, like Fresh and Fit, like Pop the Balloon.
Right.
So it's like maybe that was more one she's going on because the audience is men. And so they're asking more questions that are like that for them to be like kinky, like, oh, she just lost her virginity. Versus the other one is more like, because she exists in both worlds, right? Where it's like you're trying to like in some ways, I guess, be an activist.
Yeah.
But then you're also
That's so
existing
true.
in the marketing business world of like growing your platform and making money.
Right. That's such a good point. I didn't even think about that. And it's also like in the one on RTM, like with the man and the woman, like Lily Phillips physically like looked uncomfortable to me and like wasn't smiling or laughing as much. And then on The Spills, like I could tell that like she felt like validated and like as much as like, and this is just my opinion, guys. Like I don't know Lily Phillips, but like based on watching it, I feel like she genuinely like loves what she does and like felt like empowered by it and is happy with it. But I can tell even though she's so outwardly confident, there is a part of her that like gets a little nervous to talk about. Yeah. Because she has this like nervous laughter and like, I was just like analyzing her like for the purpose of this episode, but I felt like in The Spills when the woman was validating her experience, like I could visibly see her just like look happy about that. And it like made me happy.
Because it's like when she's on The Spills, and this is like, you know, we don't know for sure, but like
we don't
probably,
like I have no
like we don't
we're
know.
opinioning right now.
But like on The Spills, she's probably being more validated in her identity of who she actually is as like this is a job and this is what I'm doing and I'm a businesswoman and whatever, I'm a feminist. Versus the other one is she's playing a role and like she's probably used to performing in the sense of like when she's performing in porn, but then to perform on a podcast to promote your porn
as you
you almost have to be like media trained in a way because you're still being that like character. You know what I'm saying? And then switching between those worlds, it almost makes me think of like us, like because we have,
can you imagine?
We have separate like corporate identities, right? Like if I went on a podcast as the corporate identity. It's just different. Like you're a different version of yourself and you're trying to appeal to a different audience.
I know.
Versus in a safe space like this where you can be like comfortable. So it's like she's young, she's new in the industry. She's probably still getting like used to that.
Right. And watching the episodes back to back, like it was just so noticeable for me.
Yeah.
But one of the most interesting things, and we literally talked about this last week in our purity episode, Disney purity movements, all that is like, what is losing your virginity? I'm queer. So like, what really is that?
Yeah.
And the Spills woman interviewee, the one that was asking the questions. Thank you. Yeah. The other, bro. The Spills interviewer was like, what qualifies as like 101 bodies? Like, were you literally like,
did they
penetration every single one of these guys? Did you come? Did they come? Like, what determines that?
Yeah.
So let's hear what she has to say.
Oh, okay. I love this.
What was the highlight of the day and what was the low light of the day?
The highlight, you know what? Every guy like just turns into one. I very much like do not remember much. Highlight, you know what? Like just the feeling of finishing. Like not that
the end.
Yeah, that sounds really bad, but it's like a marathon. Like I love running, but when I do a marathon, like it's not always enjoyable doing it for that long. And so like the feeling of finishing and accomplishing that is like a real, I don't know, like it's just super, it gives you like, what's the,
like rewarding?
So rewarding. Yeah. I was like, finally done this, felt super rewarded. That was probably the highlight.
One question that has come up a lot is, what are you counting as sex in this situation?
Yeah.
And just in general, like what do you count as sex? Because I know also you said you're bisexual before, and like queer people, we kind of approach like definitions of sex a little bit differently maybe. Yeah. So I'm very curious to hear what you counted.
So I counted anything. So whether it was oral, you know, actual like penetration sex, anything, especially because a lot of the guys, you know, they came quite early. And so I wasn't going to wait for them to kind of like rejuvenate to then have penetrative sex with all 100 guys. Like all of them I didn't have actual penetrative sex with.
Okay, first thing, the first part about it being like a marathon, this just shows that it's work because again,
I knew you would like that shit.
When you finish a shift, when you finish like whatever project you're working on, you're happy to be done. And I could see her be a little uncomfortable to say that because I feel like she doesn't know where the line is yet between like what's okay to say, like this is a performance versus what's not.
That's what I'm saying. Can't you see that in her?
Like she's almost like, I don't know if I should be saying this type shit, but it's like, but I think it's important for her to say, and I hope she grows into being comfortable saying that because like men should know that as well. But I love even more that she is bisexual and she's counting other things. Because one, doing that, it would be so nice to like be fucking people and then have a break to either like, because I like sucking dick personally, like
but it's consecutive.
You know, it's consecutive, so it's like at least you have like like a little in how they came quick or whatever. But like
that was so funny.
It's a very like queer, inclusive, new way, like anti-patriarchal in a lot of senses too, way of looking at sex. So I like that.
And I do think, like, even though it's like, yes, I hope she grows and is able to, like, say these things with her chest, I do think it's, like, beautiful and representative, like, of the experience of, like, being unsure and, like, how to navigate that. And I think, like, she handles, like, she's so cute. Like, she's bubbly. She's, like, funny. Like, you can tell she has a sense of humor. Like, she laughs so much in the episode. Like, and it's like she's just trying to be herself in a world that like doesn't really
and she says
like accept her job
regular too. Like when she said like some of them finished fast, but like when she was going like on that part, she seemed way more comfortable, way more talking about like normal, talking about like the logistics of it. I think it was just like when she was like, oh, like should I feel guilty for saying that I was happy for it to be over? Because she probably knows that people are going to be like, oh, see, you wanted it to end. You didn't want to be there in the first place.
Right.
You know?
And it's also like, I'm just thinking of this right now, bro, but I'm like, people talking about how she had sex with 101 guys, it's like, no one's talking about it in the context like it's actual work. And even more than that, I'm like, what does it even matter that she's a sex worker? Because I feel like, or does it make it better? Because if someone went on TikTok and was like, I'm just going to do this for fun, it's not work, but like I want to fuck 101 guys, like would they demonize her in the same way?
I think they would probably demonize her more. But you know what's interesting that they aren't demonizing though is the 101 guys that fucked her. Because you know, guys are always like, oh, I don't want another girl that just like has been sleeping with other people. Like 101 guys.
A couple of people did later on. No, I did find some
demonize the guys?
But not nearly in this, not demonize them, but just say that they're like pathetic and shit.
Okay.
But it's not the same.
But I don't, not that I'm saying they
her.
should be. Like, I don't think they should be because again, this is performance, this is porn, this is entertainment, all of that. But it's like, you know, she, in a lot of ways, I think she has the power in the situation. She's the one, I don't know if they were cut a check for their appearance. I mean, probably, maybe, or if they were fans.
I don't think so.
Because I did see some videos.
No, babe, I actually know for a fact that they weren't.
Yeah, because I think I saw her say, like, they were running out of guys. Like, she, like, needed more to sign up or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's, like, exactly, like, they only have, like, 2 minutes or, like, whatever. And she, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, she's the badass in this situation.
She does have the power. She's orchestrating the entire thing. Like she has like a team as well, like an assistant, a manager that were like on set. Like it's a full production.
Yeah.
And so essentially the exchange is, as Lily Phillips, she's like, you can fuck me for free. But I'm going to put this online and make a shit ton of money.
So it's probably her fans.
So it's not really for free, but it's not anything out of said man's pocket.
Right,
you know?
right.
So that's why it's like a good deal, quote unquote. Yeah, like it's not
and a lot
the
of
stripper,
these men, like the men that pay for OnlyFans and the men that like love her.
Woo, they got money.
They're like down. They're ready. They've been like thirsting after her for so long. Like, fuck it. Yeah.
And before I looked into this, like I didn't realize it was all amateurs in the film. And like that's another thing she talked about in the podcast. Like she was asking like, who are these guys? And they literally like apply to do it.
No, that is the part out of everything in this. I feel like the most dangerous part about it is that they were amateurs. Because, and that's, I feel like how you're more likely to get the situation, whether it was consensual or not, with him biting her lip and stuff like that, because you don't, and I'm sure they probably did like STD tests, like they had condoms, like background tests, like whatever.
Yeah.
But like, she did say they were running out of time and stuff like that. Like that's a little bit like, you know, just for her safety, but at the same time, she has a crew there, she has security, she has everything set up, so it's like...
And we don't know how, like, I hope she has a good security, but it's like, exactly, we don't know, and like, that is a dangerous aspect to it, like, getting people from just, like, off the street.
Strip club, like...
Well, I mean, that's dangerous, too, like, you know what I mean? That's technically dangerous, but, like, it's work, like,
honestly,
is it not dangerous
more,
to, like... get a new client that comes to your house and you like make their
a new cleaning person, a new plumber. Like there's always fucking shit, you know?
Like if someone's a predator, they're a fucking predator.
Yeah.
Like whether you're one-on-one in the VIP or one-on-one in like a fucking doctor's office, like you don't know.
You're
like,
so right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, we all know that like men don't care if you're giving access to the body or not. So it's like strippers are technically giving access to the body. Like, you know,
or
it's
not
like
even
all,
because like sometimes
or
they get
not
assaulted
even.
just because they're, you know, in the strip club and they're wearing like whatever. So it's like exactly like the lines of consent and our idea of consent is still,
Right. Fucking tea, bitch.
Yeah.
So another TikTok, and this is like a TikTok from this interview. It's just like easier because it was all put together. But this was like, essentially, we've kind of already talked about it, but like a little more of like how it actually worked, like from Lily's perspective, just some more details for you guys.
We had a whole waiting room, so we made sure I had a bit of time as well to go through and think about it and stuff like that, and like had to obviously sign all the forms, so it gave them a little bit of like thinking time. And obviously they've already like applied for it like a month in advance anyway. And then once we got in the room, it was generally, I filmed it super amateur, like I just gave them my iPhone, filmed it POV because a lot of them didn't want their faces in it. Like it was super like amateur filmed because I didn't want all of this like camera guys or big cameras or lights or anything like that, so I skipped all that. Some of them were definitely quite nervous, but I hoped I chilled their nerves out. I had such a mixture. Like, it was genuinely like, you got onto the street and like every different looking person, they all kind of came. And there was no like one type of person that showed up at all. But you know what? Everyone was just super actually respectful. It was quite surprising how nice everyone was.
I bet you had one hell of a glow afterwards.
Yeah.
How has your attitude to sex just in general changed since you joined the adult industry?
I just love it.
It's so nice to meet someone that's just like, I love my job. I don't want to change it and I'm doing great.
This is the thing. I think people think it's super degrading, but no one's actually, like, it's all the people who aren't in the industry saying this. Like, I see a lot of like TikToks and things like that of people like, God, these women hate their jobs and that's super degrading. It's just like, have you ever spoke to one person who's actually in the sex industry? You know, because majority of everyone who I've worked with have all been like, I love my job and things like that. And I'm in a real privileged position where I can choose to do this. Like, I don't have to do this. And I choose it because I love it. I just think it's definitely opened up my mind. I think meeting so many more people who are like really open, it's just opened up a whole new world of like these like sex parties and open relationships that I didn't really realise happened before I was in the industry, which is just great. It's just nice to talk to people who have the same like attitude as you around sex, because I think growing up I was a bit like, God, I'm so sexual, like, you know, like, am I a whore? Like, is this bad? Should I just stick to one guy? Like, I felt super ashamed. I think when I was at university and my body count hit like 10 or something like that, and I remember crying to my friend and being like, God, people think like 10 is a lot of people, you know, like, oh God, like this is awful. And it's just like, girl, chill out. Like,
and also like, who the fuck cares? Like,
yeah.
I mean, 10 people, 101 people, like it doesn't change who you are. I mean, I feel like if anything, the broad range of sexual experiences I've had, and I'm sure you'd say the same, is like made me a better person.
Yeah.
If anything, like you learn how to be mindful of different people's
100%.
bodies and experiences, and
100%.
like,
and I've got a lot better at it.
Would you say it's fair to call you like, I feel like you're one of the most slut-shamed women in Britain right now.
I don't mind the word slut though. Like, it doesn't bother me though. I know I sleep around and that is, I guess, the definition of a slut. So call me a slut. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't really bother me.
That's so refreshing. I love that. Like, I think in some ways I wish more like, because obviously I wouldn't show a podcast like this or your content to like an under 18-year-old.
Of course not.
But I would want like a 16, 17-year-old girl to know that like actually being called a slut says much more about the person calling you a slut than you. Like
100%. The people who are calling you a slut and telling you that a body count of 10 is high are the people you don't want to have association with anyway. Like, that's kind of what I've realised, is that like, I do this because I love it, and I'm not bothered if 99% of the population don't want to date me, because I don't want to date someone who has views about me sleeping with a lot of guys. Like, I don't care to have relationships like that with people. And so it's kind of weaned out the weak. You know, it's kind of a good thing because it's weaned out the guys that I don't want to date anyway.
I got run through by 101 guys. Now, I've had a lot of backlash so far about it, and I've seen some of the videos and I see your side. Like, I am not trying to encourage other girls to be doing that, like if they don't want to and feel like they have to do that. But my side is like, I'm just a girl trying to enjoy myself, trying to have fun, trying to make some content for you all, you know, trying to get my bag. Like, this is fun to me, this is what I enjoy, no one is forcing me to do this. And I feel like we're going back in time to where women are getting shamed for being a sluzzer when I thought that's what we were trying to get away from.
It's really interesting how it was on a phone too. I didn't know that. I didn't think of that
Right.
because especially
Like
the way
POV.
the room is like set up and stuff, but makes even more sense why they would come so quick. I feel like that situation, like the point of view of like it feeling like it's an intimate sex tape, like amateur
Right.
on your phone versus like big camera lights when it's your first
Oh,
time
you
doing
thought there was
that.
like a camera
yeah,
crew.
like I thought it was like
Yeah.
that. I need to, is it just
Way
on her
different.
OnlyFans or is it on Pornhub? Because I kind of want to watch it.
Bro, that's like so funny because I was thinking that too. I mean, I tried to log into my old OnlyFans to see if I could click, but it's like I haven't posted and it like wouldn't let me.
You probably have to pay for it anyway too, right?
I know, but at least just like, yeah,
To
you're
see
right,
if it's
you're
a-
right.
yeah.
But Pornhub, we should check it out because I didn't do that.
Definitely look it up because I'm like, I want to see how it all went down. Like, especially like it being filmed on a phone. Like, I'm like, that's so
And
interesting.
I love that shit. I
Yeah.
love amateur porn style.
Yeah.
Because you feel more like it's like you could
it's
do it
more
like
regular,
whatever.
it's more intimate, it's more like the person next door type of situation. It's not as much like, it feels sometimes like with regular porn, it's just too much of a performance.
Too much stage. That's what
Yeah.
I was gonna say. And so honestly, it's like she knows what she's fucking doing, bro. Like she knows what she's doing. So also in the episode, she did the interviewer asked a little bit about aftercare, and for Lily Phillips, that looks like she took a bath. She was like, I'm not going to be on my phone, like kind of just like a little bit of isolation after all that. But obviously aftercare looks different for everyone. It is so important. And also, again, there was no skin-to-skin contact at all. Like there were condoms like
Love
on
that.
everything. And she did say that she specifically didn't want to have penetrative sex with everyone too because it would lessen the risk of catching UTIs or yeast infections. And she was like, I'm so happy I didn't catch one of those. But like it seemed like she knew that like that was a possibility and like she was ultimately okay with it because that's just one of the physical implications like of the work.
Yeah, you can.
And like, yeah, like to
It's
her it
treatable.
wasn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I do want to say something about aftercare though, because I feel like I know when I was stripping, like for me, like the hardest part.
I didn't do shit.
But the hardest part was going home and trying to go to sleep after. Like it would be really hard. And me and you would like a lot of times like have sleepovers and sometimes watch SVU, which would like maybe make it worse. I don't know. But I feel like, and I don't think I always felt like this. It wasn't until later when I like really thought about it. The shame and the reason it would be hard to fall asleep is because of like how I grew up, society, what I think other people think about me, not necessarily
because of
what I
you.
did. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because like when I am
Yes,
being
dude,
like
like-
flirty, sexual, all of those things, like I'm happy, I'm having fun, I'm working, this guy's annoying, let me get the money. Like none of that in the moment ever to me felt I'm uncomfortable. I mean, there were times, you know, of course, like where you feel uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but I never felt like that. Like it was fine. It's just the
like
after,
the overall. Yeah.
like the hangover, and almost also like if you've ever had sex with someone that you've like regretted a little bit, and then you're like,
Yeah.
you know, oh my God, like, you know, that can be like different reasons or whatever, but like it's just all the other shit, and that's why it's like, I'm glad that she talked about aftercare, but it's just so fucked up how it's like probably not even that experience of fucking the 100 guys that's gonna make her feel a type of way. It's gonna be the internet's response to it because you have so many people's like voices in your ear, let alone like the society that came before that taught you that this was wrong.
That's probably why she's like no social media breaks because people are commenting horrible things on the TikToks I just posted. And I feel like for me, it was like, I just didn't want to be alone. Like when we did it together, I had you.
Yeah, because it is like, it's when you're, and it's the same way. Like sometimes I go out and like, bro, like I'm still like flirty, finesse drinks, like whatever. And like, just with anything, like you start to like overthink things when you're by yourself. Like you're like, oh my God, was I weird? Did I like overshare? Or did I do this? Was I doing too much? And like with anything, but it's just because of like society and like, you know, like you're afraid of what other people think about you. And I think because it's so taboo, like it's 10 times more likely when you are doing this type of work until you build up that like, but at this scale, like I feel for her, like it's not like, I really like being in that position. I don't think it's like post that was the bad experience. It's the internet that makes it hard. I feel her and I feel the same way in a lot of senses. Like I'm someone who regardless of if I'm working in sex work or not, which I'm not anymore, like I love to flirt and like I'm a sexual person and like I feel her in terms of like the body count thing, like getting to a certain point when you're in high school or college or whatever and being like, oh my God, like, am I a whore? Like, you know, that stuff. But it's like, no, like I'm having fun and this is what I like. And like, you're putting that on me, but that's not me. Like you're trying to make me feel bad about like something that is natural and human and people enjoy. And like sex can be for love and sex can be for creating babies and that's beautiful, but sex can also be for play and it can be like a catharsis to get like relieve your stress. It can be for money. It's a job. Like it's so much more than this little like patriarchal religious box that we put sex into.
And I didn't know what sex was either. Like you have to do the work to unlearn this shit. And honestly, Pleasure Activism by Adrienne Marie Brown like changed my fucking life, bro. Like the way that they just so vividly and blatantly talk about, you know, there's really not a lot of difference between non-sex workers and sex workers. Like stop categorizing them as these like crazy individuals that are so comfortable with things they shouldn't be comfortable with, etc. So it's like you have to do the work, but it's like, yeah, people don't know all of what sex is, like casual, paid, whatever. Like
it's unlearning it in the same way we have to unlearn to be racist, unlearn to be transphobic, like unlearn to be sexist, like all of those things. You have to unlearn all the shame and like toxicity around sex.
Right. Exactly.
And sex work, yeah.
So as I said, Lily Phillips is currently looking for men to sign up to be a part of her 1,000 guys in 24 hours. So she has TikToks like this that promotes that.
If you want to be a part of breaking a world record, I have now pinned a poster on my Twitter on how to apply to be one of the 1,000 guys to be with me in 24 hours.
We asked our audience, how do you feel about Lily Phillips sleeping with 100 guys in one day? 47% said all the power to her, no issues with it.
Love that.
23% said she probably has a lot of trauma, like what you were saying. And you broke that down so good. What'd you say? You said people that are in sex work either like they have a lot of trauma or something else, and it was really good.
I don't remember, bitch.
We'll watch it back when we're editing, but like something about it's like they were like abused or they had trauma, like or
oh
no,
yeah,
it's
people
like,
either think that they have that or something like that.
There's like they only categorize sex workers being one or two things.
Yeah,
where it's like it's so many different things, and like people.
Yeah, you're trying to get out of the trenches, or you have a bunch of trauma. That's
what you said. Exactly.
Like you're like you're sold into sex work, or you're like you were abused as a child.
Those are the stereotypes. Yeah. So 23% voted for trauma, and then 15% voted for it's too much even for a porn star, and also 15% said it makes me feel sad, honestly. And I do think like obviously maybe not, but like all the power to her. Like It doesn't have anything to do with me. Like you know what I mean? Like it has nothing to do with you. Like if it makes you sad, like I think I'm not going to be mad at that, but I think it's like that person has reflection. Right. That's about you. Like, because you don't know, like, you don't, like, it's all about you.
It's about your views of
sex.
And for the people who said it's too much even for a porn star, like, have you watched porn?
Good the fuck bye, bitch.
Because there's so much worse porn shit out there. Like, we are for CNC kinks, we are for subdom, all of that stuff. But exactly, you want to talk about like punching people in the face, like asphyxia, like the needle thing. Like there are so many like more intense things than just like 2 minutes each guy. Like I'm like, bitch, I don't think I would do that.
Like, but one of them brought her a flower. Like they like her.
They're
like
her fans.
I just like. And if the worst thing that happened was like a little lip,
that healed.
You know what I've looked like coming? No, like it's crazy, bro. And it's like people, and it's like everyone hating on her. Like it's about them. They're projecting. It's not even about her.
It's the bruised fruit shit too, like the purity episode that we did last week. Literally, because it's like people see her as like, oh my god, if you've been entered. Which I forget what I was like watching or reading, but how it was like sex would be so much different if we talked about things as being enveloped versus penetrated. Like how we say penetrated is always from the men's perspective versus enveloped would be from the woman's or whatever. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Succulated.
But, like the idea that like just by this many people going into her in any way or her being touched as many times, like she's damaged.
But they're like, good.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Right, exactly. It doesn't make sense.
Even though they just touched a whole bunch of other dicks that had condoms on them in her pussy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, some gay shit. No, I'm just kidding. They're not ready for that conversation. So, but yeah, that's what our audience thinks. You know, majority voted for all the power to her. So I'm pleased, okay?
We love that.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about Bonnie Blue. Bonnie Blue is another content creator, OnlyFans, porn star, etc. But she's a little bit older. She's 25.
She looks old. Like, not in a way where she looks bad. But it's just the British culture
It's the British shit, I know.
It's the style. Like, the sweater she has on with her hair. Like, it's very much
she's
giving
like
suburban
mom.
MILF. Yeah,
or that.
Yeah.
She grew up in Stapleford, which is like in England, I guess. Like, I know she's in England, so it's got to be. And before starting sex work, she actually worked in recruitment and she was also married. But in 2021, she moved from Nottingham to Australia and ended things with her husband. She began working as a cam girl before OnlyFans, and she made $5,000 in just 1 week. And then she decided to move to OnlyFans from there. And allegedly, she makes over $200K a month, bitch. So we're talking millions like per year, right? Like,
bro, maybe we need to get on the camera. I don't know.
Thank you. I've been saying this to you.
See,
you're in a new era right now, and that's why you're like leaning
I'm like
in.
single now, so I'm like, it's whatever. But I've always like strip club versus like online. It just trips me out more because of this. Like, you know.
And so here's where it gets interesting, babe, because I don't want to critique sex workers ever, right? I don't want to say they're wrong, and I am just literally dying to know what you think, because there's controversy around Bonnie Blue and our girl Lily Phillips.
But this is the thing, babe. This is the thing. We can critique because we've had this conversation before. We've been afraid to critique feminists. We've been afraid to critique like sex. We can critique people while still supporting other parts of what they're doing. Like, that's okay. So I just want to, you know.
Thank you. Yes, I and everyone else need to hear that as well. So there's controversy, and our girl Lily Phillips, like, not too fond of the things that Bonnie's been saying, okay? And we love Lily, as I'm saying. So, and this is all of like 2 days ago,
Lily
bitch.
Isn't fond of Bonnie?
Not at the moment, not in the current
Bonnie's
state.
Okay.
Lily's like not really too happy with like some of the things that Bonnie Blue has been saying, and thinks that she's kind of representing sex workers like not in the best way. So there's controversy, and basically she's detailed some of the controversial ways she makes money, meaning Bonnie Blue. Namely, she has described how she based herself in areas near universities and student hotspots in order to sleep with hundreds of barely legal, but legal 18 and 19-year-old men, along with also married men, including university professors, which that part I don't really give a fuck about.
Right.
Basically, people are mad because this woman, Bonnie Blue, is like going on TikTok like, hey boys, like I want to help you graduate. Like, and she's 25, right? Like 18, 25, like not that bad, but it's like, what if she was a man doing this?
Okay, wait. So she's soliciting sex. She's trying to get new fans. She's soliciting sex from like college students, like 18-year-olds. Like she's playing into the fantasy and being like,
yes,
you can
ma'am.
get with it.
And it's giving the amateur thing. Like she like goes outside. Let's just watch the video. Let's watch the video.
Discriminate. I don't want to just do students. I want to do their dads as well. So to be fair, I need to give credit to the students. So he gave me this idea. He came with his dad. And I was like, are you joking? I have to say, when I first saw him with his dad, I thought he's going to come and like tell me off. No, it was the opposite. He was jealous and wanted to join him.
Together?
I didn't know if that was too inbred. So I made him go separate.
Yeah,
his dad was next door in the same apartment. And I did the son first.
Okay.
Went to see the dad.
Yeah.
I still had his son's liquids on me.
Who was better, the son or the dad?
The son's penis was bigger.
Oh,
the dad was better.
That's so humbling for the dad.
Yeah.
Did you tell him that? No.
No, too
That's fair.
nervous.
Yeah.
I was thinking when they go back for tea time that night with their mum, could be interesting.
Was he still with the mum?
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if she's not going to go down on him, I will do it.
You must do it yourself.
Hey boys, if you didn't know, I'm going to be back in Surfers Paradise in just 3 weeks' time. I want to help you and your friends celebrate finishing school. So congratulations, boys. Now it's time to get me on my knees.
A very specific niche, don't you?
Yes.
Tell us about that.
So, barely legal, 18-year-olds. Because as I started my content, I realised it was not necessarily relatable to the average person. And I wanted to make my content relatable. I'm just a girl, I'm relatable, I'm sort of the girl next door vibes. However, that does not portray online if I'm doing these rough, over-the-top scenes. And I want people to be able to watch my videos and be able to imagine themselves in it and, you know, connect with it.
I think the issue that people have with you specifically is the fact that you use terms like barely legal. You say that you're babysitting for kids, I think is a word.
No,
that
I've never used babysitting.
Sorry, babysitting for adults. You did in a podcast with Lottie Moss.
But it's like the barely legal, that's what the media gave me. And the media like to villainize
But you also
women.
now use that terminology. You also say that you're educating. But I'm wondering, who are you educating? Because a lot of your audience, especially on TikTok, are teenagers. What kind of messaging are you putting out there? Because also I've heard you use say phrases such as women are lazy. If they're not going to give sex to their husbands, then those husbands, dads and barely legal teenagers have a right. Women are not the sexual property of men, and women don't exist to pleasure men.
Bonnie, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you thought about the future and where, like, will there come a point where you'll go, that's enough? Or will you maybe have a little boy or a little girl?
Yeah.
And have you thought about that and thought about if you did have a little boy or a little girl, how you would explain that situation to them?
So obviously things change massively. Like 10 years ago, you would never even have a sex worker sat here. So things are changing massively. And the things I want to achieve is educating people. So by the time if I do have children, sex workers are not going to be discriminated how they are now. The conversations will be very different. So yes, they might get picked on at school, but if you're too pretty, if you're ugly, if you don't have money, you're picked on. So regardless nowadays, children are unfortunately picked on. Whereas at least my children, if I do have them and are picked on, it's been for a much bigger picture.
So people online and in the news are like calling her a predator or like saying things like content creator or predator. And she actually got banned from Australia, like legally because of this. And also she went to Fiji, like specifically to find, isn't that crazy, bro? I saw that. I was like, no fucking way, bitch. She went to Fiji, I know. And she, specifically wanted to find like 18-year-old Fiji boys. Like, I don't know. Like, and it's like the country was like hit and basically like literally like kicked her out because they were like, you can't be doing this. And the other thing, before you say anything, is her mom is like fully on board. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just providing information. Her mom is fully on board, and her mom has been known and like was documented to like make signs for her because she stands outside and like holds up a sign that is like, hey boys, like fuck me, like literally like something like that, like for content. And like her mom like goes with her, like her mom is like involved too. And they were talking about that a lot on like the fucking Today Show, Good Morning America, like whatever we watched, that news interview. So again, it's like I was in that place, like, okay, like, but it's like, it really is hard to not like, and I know gender is just a construct and like, it's not real, but like we do exist under patriarchy and like every single one of us are affected by misogyny. And like at the end of the day, if a 25-year-old man, even if he was liberal, even if he was sex positive, even if he was having everyone sign consent forms, it would still be weird to like advertise looking for 18-year-old girls. Like people would like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how can we sit here and say differently? But then it's like, because a lot of it is like, people are like, she's poisoning young boys' minds and like not helping them grow up and like look at women the right way. And it's like, I don't know about all of that. Like, I'm just like, what do you think, bro?
Because I watched the Good Morning America, Good Morning Britain one first, which first of all is insane that they even have her on that show. Like, to me, I'm like, that means the culture's moving forward, I guess. Like,
in a
Good
way.
morning, 7 a.m., get your coffee and listen to Bonnie Blue.
Star?
And at first, just watching that one, I was like, okay, like, let's be realistic about the porn industry and how many men who are like 40 have barely legal 18-year, like that has been a genre forever with like younger women. But again, it's like production, it's like, you know, forms, like all of that. And like, I don't think the problem is with the kink. Like, I don't think it's a problem for her to be like, fucking barely legal. She's educating them. She's da-da-da, because that's all kinky. But I think I do agree that her going to the colleges and doing that and soliciting it in a way, like, because it's like when you're on a college campus, there's going to be kids there that are not 18 yet. And also like what 18-year-old boy, like they're young and impressionable. And like you are kind of like, you're trying to like get them into sex work when they're not, like it would, like you're saying, like if it was girls, we would look at it differently. So it's like, if she was doing this with other porn stars and just labeling it as barely legal, like I'm educating them, like mommy,
It's
MILF,
different.
kink, it's different. And same with the incest thing, like with the incest thing, that's the biggest fucking porn category in America. Like people love them some incest shit. Like I personally am not really into that, but like you know, like whatever. And like and at least she fucked them in separate rooms. Because at first, my first thought was like, bro, what if the dad is a predator and he's
And the way
bringing
that
the
she
son?
was like, his son was still on me when I was like, all right.
Yeah, that's. It was like weird, but it's
That was
like,
a
okay,
little
that
much.
could be a kink, like that could be like whatever. But like what my first mind is, if they're amateurs, like what if I just watched that documentary with the two brothers, the murder where they killed their parents.
The Hernandez brothers.
What if like their dad brought that, you know what I'm saying? Like what if the dad is a predator? So it's like, I think where you like blur the lines and where it gets fucked up is that. And then also her saying that like wives owe sex to them, and if not, like they, and I like as a former sex worker, and I'm sure you can agree, like we have definitely been in situations with men who have wives, and that's why the whole like home wrecker, like blaming the woman, whatever, like I never really like get that or support that, blaming the woman, because if he's doing this is my job, then I'm
She's
just like
working,
whatever.
bitch.
But I think it's a whole different situation to just be like, I'm doing my job, I don't ask, I don't tell, like unless that's his kink or something, like
right.
It's whatever, versus like coming out and directly blaming women for the reason that he's there, because it's not their fault. The reason he is cheating on you or the reason he is soliciting sex has nothing to do with the quality of the woman, his wife, or the sex she is providing. It has everything to do with him. So
Right.
for her to blame them is very misogynistic. So like, yeah, she's giving a little bit. And it's on the line, but she's crossed it.
Yeah,
like,
it's on the line for sure. And I think that's like why this whole episode like really is about like the integration of the porn industry and social media. Cause it's like did this exist like on Pornhub, like this type of soliciting? Like maybe, but you never really know what's staged or what's not.
Right.
But I think now with like OnlyFans and like TikTok and people advertising on social media so openly, and like porn stars being on like Good Morning Britain or whatever, like it's hitting way different.
Because that's the other thing. It's like, if she's posting that, it'd be one thing if she was just posting videos like that in terms of marketing. Like there was one girl, I forget, like she had posted like that she got kicked out of like university or fired from her job for OnlyFans, but it was really just an ad for OnlyFans. And then it had the little like
So
Twitter
smart.
like fact check, right? But it was like a publicity stunt. Like it would be one thing if she was doing that as like a publicity stunt, but it's not real. But the fact that she actually is like doing that and soliciting it, and even still as a publicity stunt, it's kind of like, I don't know, like we're like crossing lines, and like, because then how are you, and then we're getting into the age of AI too, where it's just like, how do you know what's real or not? But yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna just paradox.
Not with the AI. But Glamour magazine talks about it in their article, so let's just read a little bit of this and then we can, you know, sum that up. But it's ultimately like, it's like two things can be true. It's like exactly what you're saying. It's like we can support her as a sex worker and like maybe kind of see the vision, but at the same time, like,
but like, yeah, we don't have to support her just because she's a sex worker.
Right.
Because that would be like, you know,
that's like fake shit.
That's like, it reminds me of like Diddy, right? Like Diddy is a successful black man. And so a lot of people don't want to talk about the history of sexual abuse and everything because he's a successful black man that made it. But is that true? And is it also, and are there also a whole bunch of other successful black men that did not do that? Yes. So it's like, you know, we have Lily Phillips, like right here. Like we don't need to like promote Bonnie Blue like that. Like there's other blonde British bitches that are doing amateur porn. Like
I know. And it's also just because like all the haters like on like Lily Phillips are like hating on this too. So it almost felt like, oh, like I'm aligning with them.
They used to work together. They did something together, right? She said like me and Bonnie did this.
Yeah, I think I got it wrong. I don't think Bonnie did 100 guys. I think that's when they worked together on the 23 guys. Because even before the 100 guys, like there was the 23 guy record thing that they wanted to do.
Because I saw, Bonnie do an interview talking about 20 guys. Yeah.
Like she does like similar shit to like the numbers and the record breaking. Like that is like her thing. But like it's all, you know, marketing and it's good marketing. So the article echoes what we just said. Like if this was a 25-year-old man soliciting 18-year-old universities, like the world would truly be in a fucking uproar, clearly.
Yep.
Which is a good thing. Like, that's not a bad thing, but it's just like looking at that.
We don't want predators of any gender. And there's not enough, like, honestly, and we're going to talk about certain stuff when we get into the gender wars next week and everything. But, like, you know, sexual assault and, like, rape and domestic violence towards men is real. And there are already issues that people are, like, afraid to come out and talk about. So normalizing that is not helpful.
Right, exactly. And the article also talks about like how, like what you said, the barely legal is a huge porn category. And like, that's already been a thing essentially. And the article did say she is a cog in a far bigger machine. And I just want to know who hurt her. Don't love that.
I mean, okay, I'll say cog in a much bigger machine, you know, makes sense because the whole machine, but like, who hurt her? I mean, just because we're talking about the fact that she could be a bad
person.
Yeah, okay, true, yes.
Like,
you're right.
Why did someone have to hurt her? Like, she could just be a bad person.
You're so right, because I feel like that's me in my history of abuse, always being like, oh, well, it's okay because they have been through abuse, but it doesn't matter. Like, they can still be abusers and having been through nothing. Okay, yeah, keep going.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, you don't have to, like, you can't just always, like, be like, oh, I'm a predator because of my history of abuse. That's not an excuse. There's people with histories of abuse that aren't predators. Yes. Yeah.
But not an excuse.
It's a
bullet point.
Yeah, it's a bullet point. It's one of the causes, but not all of them. Yeah.
Right. I love that, babe. Exactly. You got to catch yourself in those moments for real.
Right.
But basically, she said, I received backlash for sleeping with barely legal 18-year-olds, but the keyword in that sentence is legal, she said. Rather than comment on my TikToks, people should complain to the government to increase the age from 18 to 21, as I'm only complying with UK law. So, like, she's given some sass.
Okay, I'm just going to say one thing to that. It's like, agreed. Like, her fucking 18-year-old is fine. If she wants to fuck a consensual 18-year-old that has agreed to do the porn, all of that, even if they're an amateur, fine. But the way that she is going about soliciting it...
Right.
Is like, a little bit predatory.
Necessarily.
Right. Like, you know, like if an 18-year-old applied and you have like a process like it normally is to get a job versus being recruited into something that like your image will be on for the rest of your life.
Right. Like,
yeah, no.
And she really does give like hot mom, and she's literally younger than we are.
Yeah,
like, I don't know.
Weird.
I know. Like, I feel bad. I'm really not trying to shame her, but it is interesting. Okay. The worry expressed by many is that both her views and behavior play into the dehumanization of women. The OF creator consistently uses derogatory language when referring to women, including herself, and has been accused of reducing the role of women to be the responsibility of keeping men sexually satisfied. She said, when I ask husbands when the last time they got a full service from their wife was, they haven't, but those partners still want the bills paying for, Blue tells Grace during her podcast appearance. You can't expect bills paid if you're not at least going down on them. Meaning, like, as a wife, you can't expect your husband to, like, provide and, like, pay his part in your life if you're not fucking him completely.
And this is what is, like, this is what's so fucked and, like, so, because it's, like, part of me keeps going to the conversation of, like, she's an entertainer, she's a performer, she's a porn star. It's like the idea of kink and role play and all of that goes into it. And so it's like, if you're saying that in a kinky space to this man to make him feel better about himself and come and get paid, that is completely different. But when you're trying to do this as a publicity stunt and make it your whole personality, it's very, I don't know what the right word is, but it's bad and it's hurtful to the rest of the porn industry and porn stars and women, because it again like holds up this narrative that porn stars are just the character that they're playing and they're nothing more, you know?
Yeah, it's detrimental to the like representation like of everything. And that's literally what Lily Phillips fucking says, bro. Like,
but that's why it's also like, because again, the conversation about like, do celebrities need to be political advocates? Do Disney Channel stars need to be role models? Like, she is just a bad person that works a job. Just like there's a bad barista that spits in your coffee or overcharges you or pockets your money, or you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
like she's just bad, and she's like leaning into all the patriarchal shit that's like because sex work is already so taboo and not seen in mainstream. She's getting mainstream attention and making the rest of the industry look bad because mainstream media already wants to look down on porn stars, so they're gonna pick up people like her versus someone who's doing it right.
And it's like she ultimately like hates herself. Like if that's how you talk about women, and it's like so porn stars
it's like to make herself feel better
and think
something.
she's like we're not worth it. Like
I don't think
she
believes. I think she's playing a like I don't know.
You don't think she believes? You think maybe those aren't her real morals?
I feel like there's no way she believes that. I feel like she's playing a character and she thinks it's going to get her media attention, because when she says that, who is she turning off? Women. Who is her audience? Men.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't think she gives a fuck probably about anything besides money, just like any other corrupt corporate fucking business person.
Right, bitch. You're so right. Like, I'm over here thinking, like, yeah, like, and like, maybe, like, we don't know. It could be
both. I mean,
but
she's
like,
probably
that
conservative too.
Is like 80% probably true. And like, I really wasn't even looking at it like that. But it's like.
Because that's why Lillian Phillips probably had a difficult time on the other podcast, because she doesn't know what the line is. Like, she's trying to be an advocate and she's trying to be different than Bonnie Blue, where she's not showing up as like, in persona 24/7, she's advocating as well. But I feel like Bonnie Blue is just persona all the time.
Yeah, 24/7.
And predator.
And it could be getting worse because like she sees that it's working, so she's like, let's ramp up the misogyny.
Like I'm on Good Morning Britain. Like
I got kicked out of Fiji and banned from Australia, but it's fine.
Her name's everywhere. Yeah, we're talking about it right now.
Right. Exactly, bitch. I put her in the episode. But yeah, she just says some more shit about like, I don't know why people are so shocked when their partners cheat. Like, what did you expect? Like, if you're not having good sex with them, like, it's your fault, basically. And then Glamour says, sex work is a valid career and has provided empowerment and financial stability to thousands of people. But Blue's glorification of men cheating while simultaneously blaming women for not properly servicing men is a deeply damaging statement. Both because it contributes to the internalized sense of self that many young girls watching and listening to Bonnie are at a pivotal point of developing, and because it harps back to the outdated societal belief that women are the property of men and live to please them, and it makes sex work. And it stereotypes sex workers in a way that like people already think. Like it just reinforces that stereotype, like with her just like, because it's like, yeah, she's not saying I hate myself, I'm not worthy. But by saying these things and by like insinuating that women are men's property and like all we're really good for is sex and that's what you do for a profession, like people are quick to think like, well, she doesn't really fuck with herself. Like, how could a porn star when they're doing that? Like, of course she doesn't like herself. Like, it just reinforces everything.
That's why I feel
and
like
Good Morning Britain, bitch. Like, do you know how many old ass people are watching that? Like, it's fucked.
It's
like,
reinforcing, but she's the exact narrative that they all want because she confirms, and I feel like that's why it's like
she's white, she's pretty, like
she's white, she's blonde, she's British, she's pretty, she's that's why I'm like, she could be conservative as fuck. She probably is. But I think this is a business strategy.
But maybe not to this extent.
But also, I just want to shout out to Glamour for saying this. Like, sex work is valid and all of that stuff. Because I feel like we have, like, I'm realizing in this article, like, how far that we've come in a lot of ways, you know? And, like, even doing the Gender Wars timeline, which we're doing next week, like, talking about like when Beyonce said the OnlyFans thing like might start an OnlyFans and like how much more normalized it's become.
That was
that was like her plugging that, and even Cardi B's history as a sex worker, like, you know, and also like let's give credit to where credit's due.
Like
it's
many
Black
people.
women that have been like, you know, leading the movement on that shit too. But it's
right.
It's so typical of like a blonde British white woman to like just completely tank
it all
movement and bring it down.
Exactly. So here are some TikToks showcasing said beef between Bonnie and Lily.
I actually think it makes you a better partner because then you can come home, deal with your wife's whinging, you know, you can get on with looking after the kids and you can still do that part of your life, but you're just sneaking off elsewhere to get pleasured.
Oh, I don't like what you're saying
this is
at
for people.
all.
This is for
and
people.
you're a woman.
This is for people
This is
that aren't
his
happy
wife.
necessarily.
It's like if they're going to work and doing a hard day's shift, they need to be treated. And if the women aren't doing that,
you just think women should service men, and it's all about like them being happy when they come home from work.
so you should be listening to my advice now. Say
Your
go home,
advice
put some
is
nice
so
underwear on.
ridiculous.
Are you guys going to kiss?
I can't believe the shit that is coming out of your mouth. Honestly, it's so pick me. Are you that
I don't need to be
desperate for
pick me.
attention?
I am already been chosen. Like I am the main character.
Yeah.
I'm sat here and you're calling up from what? Your car? To your husbands and their partners, they pay my bills and my family's bills and have made me a millionaire. So
that one day when you get married and fall in love, you could be giving him all the sex in the world and he still may cheat on you.
See, now that's impossible because I'm too hot and I'm too good in the bedroom.
Women can sometimes, and men can never get over that betrayal.
Oh, yeah.
And that destroys a person. So you're encouraging that, and that's what I have a problem with.
We all talk about being happy and do what's best for you. And if her isn't the best thing, then yeah, he needs to go elsewhere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When, Jackie, you're learning the new way to open up your mind.
Yeah, maybe you need to open your legs up more rather than your eyes.
Oh, bitch, come in here.
It just gives us the name that we're only here to have with, and that's all we offer is. I think as well it's quite dangerous then for domestic abuse and stuff like that, because men then feel entitled to women's bodies. You know, if some girl watches that and is like, right, well, I need to be having sex with my partner, otherwise he's going to go cheat, then you're just having sex for his enjoyment because you feel like you have to do it. And personally, I think if you feel like you have to have sex with someone, like that feels like non-consensual to me. If you're just having sex because you feel like you have to.
Yeah, I'm 100% on Lily's side. Like, I feel like she just seems like, even though she's younger, she just seems the more mature, like more like straight-headed, like knows what she's doing type of person. And I feel like it's because she's not playing the character. And like, maybe Bonnie is conservative, but I think it's a character. And like, in the beginning, it's like I wanted to like almost be like somewhat on her side in the sense of like, if these men go do what they're doing, it's outside of her control, which I do very much believe.
That was my first instinct too.
Because it's like, you know, like if he's gonna go, like, what I'm supposed to, your man is at the strip club and I'm supposed to be like, do you have a girlfriend? Actually go home, don't pay me. What?
No.
Like, no. Does the bank do that when you need a loan or a credit card? Does do the waitresses at the restaurant check to see how much money you have in your account before you spend it? No, that's not their responsibility. But her blaming it, because exactly like how Lily was saying, it's like, there is nothing you can do to make a man not cheat on you. And are there things like leading up? Like, I do believe that like there are multiple components in relationships that lead people to cheat, and that's not always the end of their relationship, and that like a loss in sex and like all of that. But like, there's also like consensually being like, hey babe, I'm not pleasured right now. Can I go see other people? Or like, let's talk about, like, there's other ways to go about it besides that way. And that is not, to blame the woman is just insane.
I know. I agree. Like, I feel like Lily is really smart. Like, she is so young. Like, I wouldn't have been saying that shit at 22, 23 years old. Like, maybe not. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like she understands it, and like maybe the whole thing like is like, we don't know, but like that, I agree, like that is what it's very much feeling like. So now we're just going to talk about kind of what the internet thinks about this. We're going to play some TikToks and then talk about some YouTube videos.
I'm sorry, have you guys heard about that Bonnie and Lily girl? I don't know what to say. I am shocked. I just went down a rabbit hole and I wish I never did. If you don't know what I'm talking about or who I'm talking about, you can type it on TikTok, but do at your own risk, because this actually traumatized me. I don't know how it is humanly possible to do this and why anyone would want to do this. And they're flexing it like it's such a big flex. Like, this is so alarming. Like, there's so many young girls on this app thinking that this is like not that bad. Like, oh, you know what? Maybe like 20 guys is not that bad. What the hell? What the hell is this app becoming? What is social media becoming? These people have a platform. I don't think these people should have a platform, to be honest. I'm sorry, but there's so many better things that you could do with your time, especially if you're a young woman, which those two, they look pretty young. I'm sorry, but no amount of money is worth going through that. I'm scared. I'm terrified.
Today is the day where I get through by 100 guys.
She is probably like secure in the bag ultimately.
Yeah.
But
the comment is, what kind of society allows something like this, or what kind of society drives a person to take that kind of action? We are obviously like a sex positive podcast, and we support the rights of sex workers and the autonomy of women and their bodies and all of these things. But that is a very extreme case. Physically, that's not good for you. That's not healthy for you.
I'm trying to compare it in my head to like, okay, say if someone was doing like some kind of other work for an intense period, you would have a problem with that. But also, I don't think you can necessarily compare, because ultimately it's like,
it's your body, it's sex, and it's intimate, and it's obviously taken a physical toll on her since she was saying she saw and stuff. In my opinion, the discussion we're having right now is valid, right? What is not valid is the fake caring in comments, or the fake comments that people are making, being like fatherless behavior. What's traumatized her? You don't care. You don't care what's traumatized her. You just want to make your misogynist comment and leave.
Someone else pointed out the fact that why is no one like questioning about the men that wanted to be part of this?
So the first one, like, I do like that they said they're sex positive and then they questioned the guys and like all of that. The one comment that was a little bit like iffy to me was like, you know, I mean, I get it. What kind of society creates this? Because it is like a patriarchal society, like that, you know, all of that. But then like it not being like healthy, or like still looking at it as bad, and like this many people like to your body. And it's like, well, think about people that wrestle, like UFC fight, someone who is a masseuse and massaging this many people, and one day a nail tech who is like using their hands with this, touching this many feet, this many hands per day. Like, we just like to isolate the vagina, dicks, like genitals as like different body parts that are like, you know, more taboo to touch than like these other very physical parts of your body that you're using for other professions.
Right. And I just feel like to be pro sex work and sex positive and like have been a sex worker before, or like educated in sex work through experience or text, like are two different things. Like, and like you said, like yes, 100 people is a lot, but like in terms of like her body and like the impact, like it wasn't that bad. And like you see what BDSM porn does. And so it's just like, that's what I'm saying. Like these people aren't thinking, because it's like the porn that you watch that is like crazy and like degrading and like looks painful. Like those are porn stars just like Lily Phillips. Like literally there's no difference, besides Lily Phillips is like humanizing herself more by going on TikTok, where the audience is not just people that want to consume porn, it's everyone. So it's like, like, what are you, like, I don't know.
And it's like, you want to say like, oh, what is it, 14 hours that she did it? How long was it? 14
Right,
hours?
exactly, 14 hours.
It's like, you want to say 14 hours on her body, whatever. Okay, like women give birth for 14 hours. Like construction workers, military people are using their bodies for 14 hours.
Work,
like,
right.
and it's like, and it's physical labor, and we're not questioning it. Like a vagina gives fucking birth. Like, you think that this is like, yes, it's physical, yes, it's taxing, but it is a job. And it's because we're not looking at it like work. It's the shame.
And she's also like orgasming. Like people go to work in like a factory and like fucking bleed from like standing all day. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's like, I don't really get sex positive from them, because it's like, you're really painting sex in a bad way. Like at the end of the day, it's like, why are we taught that? It's like this all goes into body count. Like this is the same conversation. Yeah. Like why body count is like such a big thing, and the higher the body count, and it's like Lily Phillips happened to do 100 guys in one day. Like I'm not about to say my body count, but it's just like it being in one day is what's like stressing people out. Because like,
I mean,
100 is like not
anyway
that.
If you said 100. They would be stressed out though if you said 100. Like if you watched Too Hot to Handle, when they were talking about body counts, like I think they were like 20 or 30 was like a lot. Like one guy had like 50. Like they were like, oh my God, like whatever. And it's like, yeah, like why are we even counting it in that way? Like the way that we talk about it, it's just like it. And it's not sex positive exactly, because I feel like so many people like to claim that they're sex positive because they're like, oh, I enjoy sex outside of like marriage, or like, oh, I enjoy casual sex with a friends with benefits partner, but then still put these qualifiers on it in terms of like how many partners you can have and how many bodies and what way you do it and not these kinks. So it's like, that's not really sex positive though.
And honestly, it's like sex positivity and pro sex work, now that I'm thinking about it, two completely different things. Like, not that I'm saying I'm not sex positive, but like maybe it's like we need to say we're like pro sex work intersectional feminists, not sex positive intersectional feminists.
Because it's both, like we're both, because it's like, yeah, exactly. Like sex work is work too. So it's an added layer of intersectionality to the sex positive conversation, because sex for pleasure, because a sex positive sex for pleasure conversation is completely different. Like the issues are different than if you're talking about sex for work, because like if I'm having sex for work, then I don't necessarily need the pleasure or the orgasm, because
not
the
necessarily,
pleasure is
not
the
if
money.
you don't
like,
want. Right.
Exactly. So it's like, it's different.
It's just like, it's crazy, Fiji. Like so many people online are just like hating. And I watched these two YouTube videos. The first girl was like Kate CLYZM. Like I couldn't even watch that much. Like she was pissing me off so bad.
I wanted to say one about the second
Oh,
TikTok
go.
first.
Oh, I forgot about it.
The
Sorry.
second TikTok. Just real quick. How and I know this is gonna probably come up later because I saw some of the listener stories before, but like the idea of poisoning young girls' brains. And like I know we're gonna get into like the whole age on like TikTok and like all of that stuff. Like I think that is a conversation to pay attention to, similar to Bonnie Blue and everything like that. But like the idea that like sex work as a profession needs to be hidden from young girls, or the idea of like having sex with like more than two people, the fact that that should be hidden, it is inherently misogynistic, like patriarchal.
Say
like,
it louder.
It's just fucked up. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we're poisoning girls We're poisoning girls' brains with the information that it's their body and it's their choice and they can do whatever they want without feeling shame for it. And like that's what we're poisoning their brains with.
Right. And I feel like such a dick, but I'm so fucking tired of hearing the children. Like, bro, like the children are growing up in Trump 2024 right now. Like, I'm just like, they're already fucked, my friends. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I'd rather have them listen to Lillian Phillips. That's her last name, right? Did I say it right?
It's Lillian is like her full name, yeah.
Okay, Lily Phillips. Would I rather have them listen to her on a podcast than Andrew Tate? Lily, 1,000%. Like, she is promoting consensual sex, healthy. This is work. This is da-da-da. Versus someone who is like, no, like, women's bodies don't matter. This, that, that. Like,
and I don't really think she glamorizes it. Like, she talks about condoms. She talked about, like, UTIs, yeast infections. Like, a lot of women would be like, oh, well, I don't want to risk that. You know what I mean? It's like, I just feel like, I'm like, so what? Because of the children, like, sex workers have to suffer and, like, not live their truth? Like, I just, like, don't get it. And it's like, then tell your kid not to go on TikTok. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
And it's on the platforms. Like, do we have a conversation about that coming? Because I think people did submit stories, right? With the children?
Yeah. Yeah.
So should I wait?
No, you can say it now. Say it now.
But yeah, because it's just like, I do think it is on platforms to an extent to have like 18 plus content. Like, I know Instagram did do that. YouTube does that. Like, or Spotify even, like, is our episode explicit? Is it 18 plus? Like, whatever, like all of that stuff. So it's like, you know, it is the responsibility of the platform in a lot of ways to prevent that. But it's also just like, it's on the responsibility of the parents. Like, and you can only shelter your kids from so fucking much. And I would argue that, like, sheltering them makes it worse in a lot of senses.
Right. And
I don't know.
Exactly what you're saying with, like, Andrew Tate. Like, is Lily Phillips, like, really the worst thing that your kid's gonna find on TikTok right now?
The president, the next president is talking about grabbing bitches by the pussy.
Like, fucking God, bro. Exactly. Like,
whether they want
shut
it or
the
not.
fuck up about the children.
He's a convicted sexual assaulter, convicted abuser, and we are talking about a woman that is making money off of consensual sex and demonizing her. Mind you, this is Britain, not America, but it's spread. But it's like, it just goes to show this is misogynistic as fuck. Like,
it's wild. And people are critiquing her in the US too. Like, it's not just fucking Britain. Like, yeah, this girl actually was British, the next YouTube video I'm going to talk about. But I don't even want to spend much time. Like, she was just saying, like, us platforming the most successful OF creators is damaging to our society and culture. And I think that it can be harmful when, like, really, really, really successful OF creators, like, go viral because it's like everyone thinks, like, sex work is, like, you're going to make so much money.
Yeah.
But not like what she's saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's saying it's harmful to society because, like, women are whores, basically.
Well, yeah, like how we were talking about in the sugar dating episode, where it's like, when I think where it becomes harmful and, like, why it is with Bonnie Blue and stuff like that is, like, you're misleading people, like, in the way that any business would be. Like, even, like, cryptocurrency shit, where they're like, oh, you know, invest this and you're gonna get this amount of money back. That is predatory. Like, it's the same with Tana Mojo, how she was trying to, like, sign girls up for OnlyFans. It's, like, predatory because it's a scam. It not just it doesn't make it worse that it's, like, you know, sexual and stuff in a very vulnerable profession that you need to be, like, prepared for. Yes, it makes it 10 times worse. But, like, the that aspect is completely different. You know?
Right. And no one's talking about that.
Yeah.
Like,
the
at
nuances.
all.
Because it's so new. I mean, it isn't, though. Because, like, when I was doing the Gender Wars timeline, I'm like, the OnlyFans surge was in 2020.
Right.
And it's 2024. We're about to be in 2025. And I'm like, we spent 5 years talking about
fucking OnlyFans.
It's insane.
It's wild. And this woman who's not a sex worker was saying that, like, OnlyFans is not empowering. Young girls watching need to know OnlyFans is not empowering. Like, all the models just say it's easy, blah, blah, blah. And she literally said any form of pornography is dangerous. Any single form of pornography is dangerous. That's just, like, too much of a blanket statement. You know what I mean?
Like, prostitution is the oldest profession, guys. Like, it's literally the oldest profession. Like, it's in the fucking Bible. Like, there were prostitutes in the Bible. Like,
it's just exhausting. Like, it really fucking is. And then this video pissed me off fucking too. It's Amory Unfiltered. It's like these two women. They were basically criticizing like Lily Phillips, like day in the life TikTok videos. Like no one wants to see that. They were laughing, saying that Bonnie's definitely going to fall victim to the sex worker to Christ pipeline. They talk about how embarrassing and disgusting it is for the men to be waiting for hours to fuck the same woman one after the other. They were constantly saying these OnlyFans girls don't exist without the men who are willing to do it and like willing to fuck them and pay for money. And then they were just shitting on men too that sub to OnlyFans creators and saying that like it's absolutely like they kept using the word disgusting. Like it was like really cruel. Like I wanted to cry watching it.
Yeah, this is, and it's like, okay, like the whole sex worker to Christ, like alt-right pipeline
like that
is a
shit.
thing.
I don't want to talk about Christ again.
I do want to do an episode on that at some point. Like if you don't want to plan it, I'll plan it.
Yeah, that's all you,
it'll
babe.
be like that to trad wife pipeline. But I think honestly, it has more, again, the shame, the aftercare, all of that has to do with the reception and the societal shit versus what it has to do with the actual act. And I know that I've said in episodes before, like my views on sex and like how I feel about someone like penetrating me and like all of that have changed. Like they've been like fluid. Like at times I've been like, oh, like I do feel like it's an intimate thing and I wouldn't want to do it with anyone else. And then I go through phases where I'm not. And it's like, I don't know. Like I feel like when I'm really am myself and thinking for myself, I'm like, it is like, it's fine. Like it is all fine. And just to call it like disgusting. And again, like you think you're fighting the fucking patriarchy. These women that are doing it, they think they're fighting the patriarchy, but they're literally just being more misogynistic because your feminism is not intersectional and it's not including sex workers. Like,
and I just don't get how they don't see that. And it's like, I guess I can because like as a white woman growing up, like was my feminism intersectional immediately? No. Like, you know what I mean? It takes fucking time, but it's just like
life experience. But I want to say like for Lillian Phillips, especially her doing the vlogs is destigmatizing the fuck out of this shit. And it is showing the fact that it is a real job and all of that stuff. And so for the backlash to be on that is like to an extent, to
it's
a
just
certain
mean, bro.
extent, I understand the criticism of like, oh, you're feeding into the patriarchy, you're feeding into the submissive woman, the slut, like you're giving men what they want, right? Which is, again, I don't agree with it. I understand the thinking, but it's thinking outside of like kink and sex and like everything else because like we tend to like what is taboo, to like heal trauma, just like CNC, like all of that stuff. But I can understand that thinking. But to have a woman like this who is destigmatizing it and showing the work behind it with the vlogs is just like, bitch, what are you missing?
I know. I'm like, are we watching the same shit? Like, I just don't
they don't
get
have the
it,
same,
Fiji.
Honestly, and it's so crazy because they will call women like Lily a pick-me, but to me, they're being pick-me's because you're saying what the men want to hear. When those same men are going to go watch Lily's fucking video and then they're going online and shaming you to be like, oh, you're a slut, you're da-da-da, when they just watched that 3 times last night. Like, what are we talking about?
I know. It's absolutely fucking insane. And like, never have I ever been like, I want to stick up for men. I'm like, leave them alone. It's not pathetic that they want to, you know what I mean? Because it's not. Like,
it's not.
They just want to fuck.
If
like,
anything, it's like,
cares?
especially when the predominant society is like, oh, women are sluts, like da-da-da, too many bodies. The guys that love Lily and like are her real fans and are supporting her for being a like proud, independent, like owning her slutness, like whatever. It's like, I don't think they're really the problem. It's the guys that are like, she's a slut that you're agreeing with that are the problem. So
because those guys exist that like actually like see sex workers to the ability that they can as like a man or a cis man or a straight man or
they know what's going on.
Like they like get it. Like they honestly do sometimes. And it's just like, I don't know, it's so frustrating. But we asked you guys what you thought about this. We said, why do you think anyone would want to fuck 100 people in one day? And 46% said for money and views. 29% said there doesn't need to be a reason, which in my mind was the correct answer. 17% said hypersexuality. Actually, there's no correct answer. 17% said hypersexuality, and 8% said, again, a lot of trauma. Because I do think money and views is a completely valid reason,
Because she's a businesswoman, so it's
right. But my thing is, like, you don't need to know what her reason was.
Yeah.
Like, there shouldn't even need to be, why.
Exactly, because we're talking about it in the context of someone who is doing it for money and views. I think that answer's okay. But if I, a non-sex worker anymore, wanted to go fuck 101 people tomorrow and do a vlog about it, I mean, if I did a vlog, would it be for money and views? But, like, either way, like, if you just met me on this, I don't know about on the street, like, I just met you. But, like, you know what I'm saying? If you just meet a person that did that, it shouldn't matter. Like,
it shouldn't matter. And, like, the obsession with, like, why do you do it? How could anyone want to do that? I'm like, bitch, you need to, like, go figure it out for yourself.
Go
like, don't ask me. Don't ask her. Like, go read some fucking text.
Go read,
Right. Read.
Or don't, but, like, just accept it. Like,
yeah, exactly. You don't need to understand.
Yeah, like, you don't need to go do it, but you just need to be open-minded.
And, like respect it and fucking just, Yeah. But you should read Pleasure Activism, because we're about to read some from there right now. So basically this whole chapter that we're going to get into was called The Pleasures of Sex Work. And I do want to just read a quick thing about like what this book really is. Like if you guys do want to get it, like the little synopsis on the back. So basically it says, how do we make social justice the most pleasurable human experience? How can we awaken within ourselves desires that make it impossible to settle for anything less than a fulfilling life? Author and editor Adrienne Marie Brown finds the answer in something she calls pleasure activism, a politics of healing and happiness that explodes the dour myth that changing the world is just another form of work. Drawing on the Black feminist tradition, she challenges us to rethink the ground rules of activism. Her mindset-altering essays are interwoven with conversations and insights from other feminist thinkers, including Audre Lorde,
our favorite,
our fave, Joan Morgan, Cara Page, Sonia Renee Taylor, and Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Together, they cover a wide array of subjects from sex work to climate change, from race and gender to sex and drugs, building new narratives about how politics can feel good and how what feels good always has a complex politics of its own. Like, that should eat. So that's the back of the book. Guys, in this chapter was also Chanel Gallant was also like, she wrote some of this chapter, and it's literally called Fuck You, Pay Me, The Pleasures of Sex Work. And like, I kind of want that tatted. Like, I don't know.
Literally. Much of our culture's fear about selling sex is exaggerated and misunderstood. This is because the imaginary sex industry is used as a mirror of our larger problems with sex and with work. Tell me what you fear about sex work, and I'll tell you what makes you anxious about your own sex life. Oh my God, I love this already.
Like, I'm just like, bro.
And your own working life. The stories we tell about sex work are about our culture's hidden realities, that even in the safety of love and marriage, sex can be a lot of work. Sometimes we don't have much choice about it. Non-consensual domination and violence are common, including among queers. Sex is still tied to economic survival and class mobility for many people, especially women. And under capitalism, all of us, quote, sell our bodies in one way or another.
And I just have to say, you've like literally said that before. Like in another episode, like you've literally been like, and I'm just like, when I read that, I was like, damn, like Fiji's already on it. But you were like, we're all doing it, you know?
Yeah. But I think it's honestly, guys, and I will echo this again in next week's episode, but like so much of how I think about society, sex work, feminism is all owed to Black women feminists, mostly from the 80s and 90s. Like, and a lot of them are in this book as well. Like queer, let me preface that. Queer Black feminists, like women feminists, like literally like that is who has set the groundwork for like everything that like I'm not coming up with it my own.
Because
like
no one sees the world the way that they do.
The same way, because
or could even
when
try.
we think about the hierarchy of who's oppressed and who experiences intersectionality, I mean, when Kimberly Crenshaw came up with the term of intersectionality, it's like only a Black woman could come up with, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, we owe everything to Black women when it comes to this conversation.
Everything. I know. And like, honestly, yeah, okay. I'm gonna talk about it. Yeah, okay. So when people ask me if sex workers really choose it, I say that's a trick question. Yes, absolutely, sex workers have agency and make smart choices all the time, including the choice to do sex work. Thank you very much. But the deeper question is, who really gets to choose to work? What about the force and exploitation of regular everyday capitalism? Unless you have a trust fund or make all your money in the stock exchange, you are also forced to work. And don't be fooled. We are all selling our bodies. If you sell your work, you're selling the body that performs that work. And that body matters. If you have a body that's not white, if you get too sick to stand for 40 hours a week, if you have a body that's fat, that's femme, that's trans, your body is considered less valuable. If that body of yours stops being well suited to make somebody else a profit, it can be locked into low-wage, precarious, and dangerous work or disposed of in prisons, institutions, and detention centers. Why aren't we so mad about that? It's not right the way our bodies are assessed by the marketplace and assigned a value called a wage at rates we have almost no control over until we are too old or sick to keep selling them. Instead of ending the demand for sex work, how about we end the demand for profit?
Is paid sex so different from other work? The garment industry is the single largest employer of women on earth. 1 in every 6 women doing paid work is in the garment trade, mostly in manufacturing in the global south. This work is notoriously exploitative, dangerous, and does not provide a living wage. Workers in the garment trade are excluded from labor protections, barred from organizing, and face regular sexual violence from bosses. In the global north, garment work is more likely to be in retail. It is still underpaid and non-unionized. Workers face high rates of sexual harassment by bosses and customers with little power to prevent or stop harassment. Meanwhile, being pretty, pleasing, smiling, flattering, and flirting with customers is an unspoken requirement of the job for women. Wherever we work, women are sexualized, and for the most part, not paid an extra dime for it.
That part.
Often with little right to refuse the work. Check out the Bro, exactly.
Bro.
And this is what I'm saying. When I got into stripping and sex work, I'm like, because when I was serving at the restaurant we were working at, what did we wear upstairs? Little black dresses.
Little black
with
dresses.
tights.
And you looked so good. I was sexualizing you, bro.
And
like,
I would wear the pigtails.
Oh my God, you look
gonna
so
make me
good.
more money. I remember I would get I got a note one time from a couple that wanted to have a threesome. And I did when I moved to Atlanta too.
Like you were stripping.
Like you sexualized the fuck out of it. Anyway. Check out the dress codes for waitresses, nurses, airline stewards, on-air reporters. Requirements for hairstyles, makeup, nails, the cut, color, even the fabric texture of their clothing are crafted according to aesthetics that please elite white men. We may not understand the value of our sexuality, but capitalism sure as hell does. And I just want to say also, because I watched this video today about the gender war stuff. I forget the YouTuber, like maybe we can link it after, but he was talking about this one white woman, like experienced like Title IX discrimination in the workforce, and they were like, oh, you didn't experience discrimination as a woman because you weren't feminine enough, because she was like more mask presenting, like she didn't like appeal to like the standards for beauty that were in that time period, because I think it was like in the 90s or something like that. But it's like, exactly. And that's like a whole, and he was talking about it in terms of like trans people, gender equality, gender rights in the workplace, all of that stuff, because it's not just like, oh, women, it's just protecting women, but like there's sectors of women, because if you're a woman that doesn't appeal to these standards of getting your nails done and everything like that, then you're also left out of the conversation. But it's like, this shit is so ingrained, like flirting on the job, like I work in the corporate tech sphere. I was sent, and I've said this before on the podcast, I was sent to a conference to purely be the hot bitch that signs you in. And I have
Booth girl.
Booth babe. Booth babe is what they called me. And I work in marketing. Like, I have a degree. I manage social media. I write blogs. I do all of this. And I don't, like, guys, don't find my company. None of that. Like, the boss that did that no longer works for the company. Like, he wasn't fired on any sexual harassment shit. But, like, that is the culture. It's tech. I work in fucking tech. Every tech conference that you go to has booth babes. They hire that shit. Yeah, it's just so insane. It's so insane, but keep going.
Don't you fucking love this shit? This shit eats like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Last paragraph. Everyone from evangelicals, which we talked about last week. I'm so sick of that word too. Everyone from evangelicals to feminists clutch their pearls about how it's so sad to commodify something as intimate and sacred as sexual pleasure. Never mind that people get paid for intimate labor all the time. Taking care of children, our emotions, our bodies. People sell their sperm, ovum, and breast milk, folks. What's their rescue squad? Blaming the sex industry for commercializing sex misses the point. Okay, guys? Blaming the sex industry for commercializing sex misses the point. The problem is not sex work. The problem is that there is no escape for women and femmes from the expectation that we will perform sexual labor for men on demand. The problem is that we have so little control over the ways we are expected to provide sexual pleasure for free.
And that is exactly it, because until we see sex work and all of that stuff that we're talking about, the uniforms, the da-da-da, and like, look, I like to wear a cute uniform. Put me in some cute shit before you put me in some ugly shit. Right, but it's not
the point.
Like, but until we see sex work as work and this being something that women are like deserve to be paid for, then we're ignoring this entire conversation. We're missing the whole fucking point.
I know. And it's like, how do we get this into the minds of like all the TikTok trolls? It's like, I don't know. And I'm convinced that it's like, they don't even really matter. It's like, we just need to like work on educating people.
Yeah.
Because like, this is huge. And like, honestly, it's hard because like we did sex work. Like, obviously I eat this up because like I felt this, and like, not even just for me. Like, I watched other people like go through things at the strip club that like.
And that's the thing. Like, and we were talking about this off camera because it's like, all the time, both of us have moments where we want to go back to sex work so badly. The reason that I'm not in sex work, the pure reason that I'm not, is because I am afraid, honestly, of the shame that I've built up from my like religious background, how I was raised, what my parents are gonna think, all of that.
Really?
Like, I really feel like that is the reason. Like, if it weren't for that and like like watching all of this stuff and fearing the backlash, that's why I wouldn't do OnlyFans. Like, for me, it would be more strip club versus OnlyFans because I don't like the digital footprint. Even though I talk about my kinks and my sex life online.
But it's different, right?
It's different, you know? Like, and especially I have tattoos, like I'm recognizable, like whatever. So it's like, like to me, it has nothing to do with the acts. If we lived in a society where it was destigmatized and the shame was gone, that would be my job right now. I swear to fucking God. To me, it's the shame because I'm already an overthinker. Like, I'm already like a depressed bipolar bitch that like I cannot, and I have trauma. Like, I can't deal with like other people's thoughts of me, and like not just other people on the internet, but also like my family, like, you know, like those types of conversations because of the society that we live in.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me so sad. But like, I hope in like the next like 10, 20 years, like we get to a place where it's not like that.
I know. I don't know though. I'm not seeing it, bro. I feel like for me, like it's that, and I'm like have a hard time articulating that because I tell myself it's because like something bad will happen to me, kind of thing. Like I like push my luck too far. But I also think it's a problem
with like, I do feel like my boundaries weren't the best when I did it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think I can trust myself fully.
But I think that I think the problem with, because that's part of the whole conversation about society and like everything else, right? Because it's like, I feel like like the more just therapy and everything, I'm like, I don't trust myself because of how I was raised, the environments I was in, listening to men, like all of those things. But when it comes to like me and my head and my soul and actually like acting on those actions, like what I know is always right, but I always second guess it because I'm always listening to someone else.
Right.
Like, you know, because I know like even if I do what I think is right, society's gonna tell me that it's wrong.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's like you're clouded to even know what you think is right because you're like so implicated by like all the other messages. And like that's a scary feeling, like to not really like even know yourself in that space fully because you're not really allowed to like you still feel like confined. Like, I don't know. It's like so crazy.
Because it's like like with waitressing, are you gonna fuck up? Are you gonna do something? Like, are you gonna, you know, like even me working in the corporate sphere and like all of that, are you gonna fuck up? Are you gonna do something? Yes, but like in sex work, it feels so much more intense because it's already taboo. So it feels like you can't fuck up at all, and you're holding yourself to this insane standard.
Yes, exactly.
And like the dollar amount is questioned on everything. Like, okay, you did this, but for how much? Like, you know, like when if I go serve a table and spend an extra 10 minutes at the table talking to them, my coworkers or society isn't gonna be like, oh, like you spent an extra 10 minutes at that table. How much did you get off that table though? Like how much, oh, you're putting too much work in. Like, oh, you're putting too much work into that client. But like with sex work, anything that you do, any inch that you give, people are gonna be like, did you monetize that? Like how much was it worth?
It's like damn, like, oh my God. Dude, that is so it. Like, that is really it, bro. That's like my trauma for real because I'm just like, not just like, okay, therapy speak, like whatever.
But no,
but that's like my.
You have trauma,
yes,
you don't
know
have to
what
be
I
afraid
mean?
to
Like,
say that because it is.
Yeah, that
I think
was like
all
my
women
mindset.
Inherently have sexual trauma, like.
Yeah.
You know.
Yikes! But yeah, I just like. It's like, but I didn't realize that when I was doing it. Like, I wasn't able to be like, this is because of society, like this and this and that. It's just all like me. Like, I'm doing it wrong. Like, I can't even do sex work right. Like, I can't even be a slut correctly.
But
like,
that's why it's like you got it. Like, I feel you, and I feel the same exact way. But like, what's always helped me with anything, and to a fault, because like in my abusive relationships, but like. We are like specks. Like you say it all the time. Like we're specks on this fucking planet. And we are like the victims of this greater system. And we feel this way because of what we have been through and because of the greater society. So it's like, okay, like you feel a type of way because you gave a dude an extra lap dance or you let him kiss your neck a little extra and he didn't pay you. Like you feel that because of what society is telling you, but it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah. And that was a great comparison to the waitress thing. It's like, if they didn't tip you properly, no one's going to be like, oh, like make you feel bad about that. They're going to be like, oh, fuck them. But it's like, if you give a guy an extra lap dance, he said he's going to give you $20 and he's like, psych, bitch, run out. Like, you feel stupid.
Right.
But it's really, he's just a fucking dick. Like, he didn't pay the bill of the cocktails. Yeah.
Right. And also, like,
I love that analogy.
If you're like having a shitty night and you pick up an extra table, but they tip you $5, it's like, all right, at least I got an extra $5. But if you're at the strip club and you like lower the price of a lap dance because you're not making any money, you're a whore. You give it up easy. You know what I'm saying? So,
dude,
yeah.
I really do. And I hope everyone listening does too, because that is like spot on how it feels and how it is.
It's all relative, bro.
Right. So now we're going to get more into the integration of the porn industry, the sex work industry with social media. And this article from the New York Times highlights this great point that it's like now with OnlyFans and like the new camming sites, it's like, actually sex workers have more control like over their content and it's like all for them, like under their name. So it's like better in a way for sex workers like to have this sort of thing. And the article says like it's essentially giving sex workers more power and like the ability to produce and distribute their own porn by themselves through websites like OnlyFans. And it's like they can run their own shows. Like there's no like porn team telling you like this is the scene, this is what you have to do. And like obviously that's all good and fine. Like it doesn't matter. But it's like it's different, and like it is like a power booster for sex workers in that sense. Like even in the strip club, it's like you don't have a full say. Like the client's like, I want you to talk like a baby. Like that's never happened, but like if they said that, like I'll give you like this much to do it. Okay, like you know what I mean? Like this is like you can essentially do what you want to do. And New York Times is ultimately saying like now we have a bunch of like empowered women sex workers that like want to speak up about this, like with this rise in OnlyFans and like the integration. And they also talked about like these days we're seeing more trans people in porn, people of color, queer people, people of size, older people, people with disabilities. We have a much more expansive vision of what's possible. Oh, and this, I like this part. This is a quote from a sex worker that basically said, I tend to not maintain the standard of beauty that the industry is looking for, said Ingrid Mouth, who started performing on webcams when chronic illness made it difficult for her to sustain her career as an illustrator. When you're shooting your own content, you're creating your own narrative, you're building your own audience. It's totally open-ended. So it's just like, that's kind of a beautiful thing, you know?
Yeah, like the creative freedom of like not being behind a like, I mean, because it's, yeah, exactly. You're not working for anyone else. Like you can just create what you want to create, you know?
Right, exactly.
It's more work probably though, from a production standpoint. Like
100%.
you are doing more jobs. You don't have a team behind you until you can afford one. But you have more creative freedom, yeah.
Two things can be true, right?
Yeah.
And New York Times says, even social media exposure is a double-edged sword, as women in pornography have to work overtime to combat mainstream stigmas.
Yeah.
And of course, whenever women rise, a male backlash awaits. For women, making it in porn is more of a hustle than ever. But even that has a way of challenging stereotypes. It's harder and harder to argue that porn performers are desperate people lured in bed, easy cash, and coerced into submission. Like talking about that stereotype of like everyone, that's what they think sex workers are.
Yeah.
They say there's just too little money in it, and women have to work too creatively to make it for that to stand. The past few years have shown a glimmer of what's possible in porn. Being like, I think what they're saying is like if someone's really like traumatized and like mentally ill, it's like, can they run their own production? Like,
yeah,
you know what I
like
mean?
you have to hustle. I mean, it's the same as like being an influencer today. Like back when Instagram first started and like mommy blogs and like the blog era, like it was way easier, or YouTube even, to like get big quick when there was a limited number of like creators on the platform. But now like you kind of have to be doing what Lily Phillips is doing to like, you know, make a name for yourself.
There's so many people. I know, that's like being extra creative. Like it's not just like,
yeah.
It's like almost normal if someone has one to an extent. Like
right. It's like the influencer to OnlyFans pipeline that we talked about in the humiliation content episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And not if anyone has one, but it's like, it really is like people that fit into like American beauty standards. Like it's not surprising if they have one, you know?
Yeah.
Which is tea.
So we asked you guys, how do you feel about the porn industry and social media industry being so connected? And 28% of you guys said it gives more opportunity for sex workers. The other 28% of you guys said it severely impacts kids under 18, and then tied for 22% as well. That's so funny that it's 28, and 22. 22% said the sexualization of women is out of control, and 22% said it helps humanize porn stars / give them a voice. And like, this is interesting. I mean, I'm happy that the majority,
Right.
I mean, I think it's really tied, because I would say gives more opportunity to sex workers and humanizes porn stars and gives them a voice are like one and the same-ish, and then impacts kids under 18. And like the sexualization of women, I don't know.
This is what I think. I'm like, are women sexualized? Is it out of control? Yes, but it's not at the fault of OnlyFans or the sex work industry. Like, it's really not. Like, it's patriarchy.
And I would argue, like, I feel like we've become, I don't know, because I don't want to act like we're like postmodern feminism or post-feminism or whatever, but like a lot of women are sexualizing themselves, or choosing the way that they are sexualized or seen more and more. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, since there's less men that are running these industries, and it is more women owning their cam business, their OnlyFans, they are doing it themselves. So it's like, are they over-sexualizing themselves or are they just owning their sexuality? Because I think it's different when a man is at the power seat of things.
It's so true. It's like you have to think about those things because it like, is it under a female lens of sexualization of women, you know? Like
Right.
in a different type of way, like who's making those decisions? That's such a good point.
Yeah.
And one of our listeners submitted a rather long story, so I will read it for us. They said, I think it's a slippery slope because I don't want to slut shame or demonize sex workers, but most of them, in my opinion, are mentally ill and have a God complex. They think they're untouchable as long as they're making money, and I know from experience. Most of them don't have the capacity to be loyal or considerate to anyone outside of the business because they think we all benefit from their public sex lives. They think our problems are different than theirs. In my opinion, I think a lot of sex workers go into it young and don't think they can do anything else, and think that other people don't understand the concept of being trapped or stuck doing something because it's not sex work. This goes hand in hand with social media because sex work becomes their personality, in my opinion. It connects so seamlessly that it is their life, whether it's hidden or not. Social media perpetuates the idea of them being untouchable and also fuels their ego because the people who subscribe to their content are there for sex and only see them as sex, making it harder for sex workers outside of the internet. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I feel like there's parts that I agree with and there's parts that I disagree with. Because
Same.
I don't disagree about the mentally ill and God complex part of things because I do think that that is a thing. And like, I'm realizing this in my own journey of having a recent bipolar diagnosis where I'm like hypersexuality and all of that is part of mania, where I'm like kind of like coming to terms with what parts of my identity are just my personality and being hypersexual. Like, is it an illness? Is it me? Like, you know what I'm saying? Versus like whatever. And while I don't think that that's really what it is, like I think there were times in my life where I was hypersexual to a self-sabotaging degree because I was mentally ill. I also think that there's a significant part of my personality that is sexual because I'm healthy and because I enjoy it. But I have come across and met a lot of sex workers in the industry that I do think are just mentally ill and have a God complex in a lot of ways. So I think it's like one and the same.
People in every industry that are mentally
that
ill.
I mean, actors, music artists,
And it's
like
just like-
performers in general, like 100%. But the social media side of things, it's like I get what they're saying to a point because it's like I think what they're saying is like, okay, if you're promoting it on social media so much where it becomes your whole personality, like you're like thirst trapping and which I think a lot of like if we're talking about the influencer to sex worker pipeline, you have to do that, right? Because like this is your platform, you are driving them to your business. And so you have to promote it in that way, and certain things you can't promote. But then it comes across, it comes to the line of like, what is social media for? Is it for business? Is it for social interaction? Is it for connection? What do we...
Right. And like sex work is like such a wide umbrella, right? Like I feel like when people think sex worker now, they truly do think OnlyFans. When like that is like still relatively like a new-ish thing. And it's just like, that's not the first thing that I think of. And it's like the strippers that we've met, that I've met, like porn people in porn, it's like they don't make it their whole personality like at all. Like it's almost like a double life in a way. And it's like, it's fine either way.
The healthy people especially. I feel like the healthy people, like a lot of people I know are artists. They do yoga. Like they
and
dance.
they do that
like
for
they have
money.
other stuff.
Like,
it's a
it's
job.
Money.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say like the influencer to sex worker pipeline and like all the girls that are influencers just like becoming sex workers. Like I don't want to demonize that, but I am like, it does give it a rep of like, you know, it's their whole personality. And I just like don't think that's
but
true.
I've caught myself because I remember like, I want to say it was like 6 months ago. I was like out with like friends and I met this girl who did OnlyFans, and like a lot of her content on like Instagram, TikTok, like Twitter, all of her content is very like just to promote her shit. And like when I met her, like she was very like, I don't know, like just over-sexualized like bimbo. And like I caught myself because I was like having like a bad like taste in my mouth. Like I was like judging her because part of me was like it's that whole conversation that we had with Lily and Phillips too, where it's like, what is the line and what do you show to certain people? And if like, I feel like a lot of sex workers as defense make it their whole personality to be like, you know, because if they don't, it's like they have to get in these long, complicated arguments versus just being like, this is what I do. Like, I'm cute.
Right.
I'm
It's
sexy.
like either you say it with your full chest and like it's a whole thing,
Yeah.
or you like don't say it. Because
Right.
like, no matter what, it's
yeah.
going to become a whole long conversation, like what you're saying.
But it is like, because I have people that I know that I follow where it's like their entire online persona is sex work. Like,
Right.
and I know them as people, and like they don't show that side of themselves at all online. They still engage in my stuff and maybe comment on my things or like my stories or like whatever, but like their online persona is entirely sex work. But it's like, you got to look at it. Like, I'm sure people follow me that know me in real life and they're like, oh my God, Fiji only ever posts about the fucking podcast. But it's like, you know me in real life and you know the podcast isn't my entire life, but this is my business.
like-
And this is my platform. So it's like, it's the same thing. Like if someone has a fucking roofing company or like a remodeling business, they're going to do like, you know?
Right. And like, this is like, you post pictures of your style and like your beauty, which is like very much part of you. But like this podcast is like arguably like the realest thing about you. Like this is what your personality, like of course you're going to post about it. It's like the same for sex workers. Like, I don't know. It's just like really hard. But I feel like, yeah, it does leave a bad taste in my mouth sometimes too, to think that like all these like OnlyFans, like white young women are like the face of sex work right now. And like I don't love that.
But I feel like they're like, in a way they're pushed in a box, because sometimes I'm like, okay, like I want to blame them for over-sexualizing themselves or the God complex of making their entire social media personality just that. Because like Lily Phillips, I don't think she's doing that. I think she's showing the other side. She's going on feminist podcasts. She's vlogging it. Like she's showing the multiple sides of things. But the women that I'm talking about, that I think he's talking about, are the women that are just on social media as that. But at the same time, like a social media presence, like social media in general is already like a fucking job. Like it's a lot.
And I
so
literally
it's like,
did that for like 9 months. Like my Autumn Instagram, if you clicked it, it was very obvious that I was selling my body online. Like extremely obvious.
Not
and
selling your body, you were selling services.
I was selling services. Yeah, I just said that because the chapter was called Selling Our Bodies. Like, I don't know. I'm just like, yeah. But yeah, exactly. It's like I literally did that, and like it didn't feel right to have that be my only, so I like pivoted, you know? But it's like that's my personal preference. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with
But you
like,
had another account too. And
I did have another
account too. Because it's like the people that I'm thinking of, it's like they only have one. And maybe that's it. But like, I don't know. Like,
I know.
You know, like, because who says at this point, is social media even social anymore? Or is it just business? Because half the time it just feels like business.
Yeah, bitch, for real. But we asked you guys, kind of transitioning, like, do you think people blame OnlyFans creators for the porn addiction problem that we've been facing? Like, you know? And this one was really split. 52% said yes and 48% said no.
This is crazy to me. No,
that's what I'm saying. These polls were fucking crazy.
Like, what do you mean, guys? OnlyFans creators? Like, Playboy had been around. Magazines had been around. Like, Pornhub had been around. Like, and even then, if we're going to say that, were you blaming them as well? Like, that doesn't make...
It's because they brought it to mainstream more, and like
I do want to acknowledge though, as we get into more like advocating for men's issues and bringing men's issues into our intersectional feminism, like I do think there is a certain degree, to which it like preys on men and pushes men into but again, porn is not just for men, it is for all people. But like when we talk about like what is viewed as traditional masculinity, what men are good for, what men's value is, like what we see men as just dicks, like all of that, like I don't think it's the fault of OnlyFans creators. I think it's the predominant society.
Agreed.
And it's like it's just like a drug. Like, it's an addiction. Like, you know, like...
I agree. Like, to say that, like, it's OnlyFans creators is, like, honestly just stupid.
No,
I'm
missing
sorry.
the fucking
And I don't
point.
think our viewers were saying they do think, like, OnlyFans people are creators to blame. They're thinking, like, they're hearing that. Right.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not like they didn't do anything wrong. Like, I think,
But
yes,
it's like the
people
predominant
are.
culture, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So this article from the Times talks about OnlyFans a little bit, and it talks about the idea that, like, the overall thought process of a lot of OnlyFans creators is like they need to put out more and more explicit content. Like with what you were saying, like that's why Lily Phillips is like doing 101 guys, because it's like you have to stand out, like be creative, and like they think and know that it'll get them more viewers and also more money. And the second thing they said is like back in the day when like everyone got their porn from Tumblr or whatever, it was like very like X-rated, like it was graphic, and like people didn't like resonate it with it as much. And now with OnlyFans creators, like what you're talking about is more of like that girlfriend experience, like intimate experience, and like that's why people
In
are
the
like
DMs,
really loving
like personal,
it, essentially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is why like Bonnie Blue's stuff is like hitting.
Right. And another article echoed the same thing and was talking about like there's personalized content and messaging. Like for some, the allure lies in like the fantasy with like forming these connections with their chosen creators. And it reminds me of the fucking AI girlfriends. It's like they really want like that girlfriend experience and like to be intimate in a different way that like you haven't been able to do in like Playboy or Pornhub or whatever. So the article also says, while engaging with adult content is not inherently problematic, the accessibility and constant availability of explicit material on platforms like OnlyFans can blur the boundaries between fantasy and addiction. So like people go on it like wanting a fantasy, then they become addicted, sort of thing. Sex addiction is a complex condition characterized by compulsive and excessive sexual behaviors that interfere with an individual's daily life and relationships. OnlyFans, with its never-ending stream of explicit content, can serve as a catalyst for individuals prone to addictive behaviors because, like, it's always there, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is what the Christians say, okay? And talking about how it can give like their users like instant dopamine because like it's a real person, like it's not a fake person, and like it can be even more addictive because of that. So like this is why it's such a problem. And like this is, I guess, like the argument to like why people do blame OnlyFans creators for the porn problem, because it's pushing it in a new way. I know we don't agree with that, but like, yeah.
Yeah, because to me, it's the same as like, is alcohol addictive? Are cigarettes addictive? Are drugs addictive? Yes, but how many alcohol commercials do we have? How many like, you know, like cigarettes are such a regular part of our culture, like weed, like anything. Like, you know, like alcohol is so closely related to like sports and like beer commercials and all of that. Like, is it addictive? Yes, but like, and same with social media. I mean, I know when I was in rehab and I didn't have my phone for 2 weeks, like it was like really, really nice. Like I was like, oh my God, like it hasn't been since I was like in high school and I had my fucking phone taken away from me, that I had the peace, not complete peace, because there were some like crazy people, like, you know what I'm saying? But like, you know, of having, I do now, having been through that experience, like realize the ways in which like social media in your phone is really addictive. Because I would be like checking for it, like even after a week of being there, I'd be like, where's my phone? Like I thought it vibrated, like on some like addict type shit. And it's like porn is like the same way, but it's like, do you blame the platform? I mean, I know like, this is a tangent, guys, I'm going off, but like I'm connecting the dots. But like Mr. Beast, right? He came under all this controversy. Did you see all this stuff?
Yeah, I
with
know
him?
who Mr. Beast
like
is, yes.
the controversy with the abuse and blah blah blah. But his manifesto or his playbook got released, where he talked about like the formula to making a good video, and it was all about like catching their attention, keeping their attention. Like he was like the attention, whatever. Like it was all about like hooking them, like the ways in which you can hook them better. Yeah. And it's like, okay, is that bad? Yes. But like, and I'm not condoning Mr. Beast. Like a lot of what he's done is fucking like terrible. But like I work in fucking marketing, guys. every company, everything, every subscription, every food you eat, they put MSG in that shit to make it more addictive. Everything that we do is designed under capitalism to make you addicted to it so that you keep paying for it.
So why are we so focused on the sex workers doing their jobs?
It's not their, like, it's...
I know.
It's because
so
of the
true,
broader
dude.
conversation of sex work.
Like, the more we do
taboo.
these episodes, I'm just like, I know, like, patriarchy, white supremacy, capitalism, like, are, like, the most powerful systems to, like, ever exist. But it's just, like, crazy that, like, you can't have a conversation about anything without talking about all of these systems. Because it's just, like, bro, like, it's just...
And it's, like, it's so hard, though, because I keep thinking about this more and more after our, like, white women episode and, like, Trump and, like, all of that stuff. But it's, like, breaking it down to people in a way that's digestible because, like, we know it so much, you know?
I know. It's weird. And I, like, feel... I know. And, like, yeah, we've talked about that off camera a lot. But we're already kind of talking about it. So let's just talk about porn addiction, like, before we kind of wrap up here. So... basically, and I did find out that, like, porn addiction isn't, like, a mental illness necessarily. So, like, the stats on it are, like, less accurate. Like, it's only investigated via self-reporting surveys. Just a note. I don't fucking know.
So it's not classified as an addiction under, like, whatever.
Not classified as a mental illness / addiction, yeah.
But wouldn't it be, I wouldn't think that it would be classified as a mental illness, but it would be classified as a symptom of a mental illness.
Right.
Like if you have addictive behaviors, like hypersexual.
Like a sex addiction, like that's...
Right, but like even like, again, with the bipolar diagnosis, like you're hypersexual, like would lead you to have more of a...
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know for me, I masturbate a lot, guys. Like I took a break. Like my vibrator died and I purposely didn't charge it for the last 3 days because I'm like, my clit needs a fucking break. But it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like when I know when I don't have nails right now, so I could, but I feel like I'm so used to the like vibration that it's like.
I feel you.
But it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, I'm realizing because when I'm manic, that's when I masturbate a lot more. I want sex a lot more. So it's like same probably if you're a porn addict. If you have addictive qualities and you also happen to have like mania
it's like
or something like that, it's linked to hypersexual, you know? So
no, totally. It's like it definitely, it stems from mental illness. It's in that realm for sure. Like like that's, I know that's why I wrote it down because that was odd to me.
Yeah.
But just the stat that, like, I was like, oh, my God. Like, I guess, like, I kind of knew. But, like, porn is available on 12% of, like, every website, like, ever in the world. Like, that's kind of high. Like,
that's
I don't know. If a person visited...
I would think it's more.
Right. If a person visited one porn site per day, it would take 84 years for them to view all the porn websites on the internet. And 1 in 3 Americans seek out porn. So, like, there's definitely an issue, but, like, it's been an issue. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. What episode did we talk? We talked about this in another episode.
Like male loneliness?
No, recently.
Oh. I don't know. I don't remember.
I think it was in one of my outlines, but yeah.
Probably. I mean, we
talk about it.
But... Adrienne Marie Brown actually talks about the porn addiction issue in pleasure activism. So she said, there are a lot of articles and books about the ways that porn can become an addiction. A lot of Christians are particularly concerned with this phenomenon. I am not going to spend much time exploring that here, except to say that if you can't masturbate and/or orgasm without pornography, it would be worth reading up on signs of porn addiction and just getting clear on your situation. I am more concerned with what we watch when we watch pornography and how it interacts with desire pathways in our brains and bodies. What are we programming ourselves to desire? On this journey of liberating our desire, we have to look at our relationship to pornography. And as with all things in this column, we want to use a harm reduction approach to learn to look at our practices without judgment, without shaming, but with curiosity and agency. What shapes us as we turn to pornography? How does porn in turn shape our real life desires? And can we use pornography to shape our real world desires? I am particularly interested in what our pornographic practices do to our imaginations. And how do we face the deeply embedded shame around what we desire? Because while we didn't create the water we're swimming in, it's still poisoning us. How do we take responsibility for the ways in which we are programming ourselves to participate in rape culture in the deepest recesses of our minds, and that our imaginations are being discarded in the process? And what is the consequence of discarded erotic imagination? It concerns me. I believe our imaginations, particularly the parts of our imaginations that hold what we most desire, what brings us pleasure, what makes us scream yes, are where we must seed the future, turn toward justice and liberation, and reprogram ourselves to desire sexually and erotically empowered lives. Ideally, porn is a spark for and an extension of a vibrant sexual imagination. And just like with fantasy, we may choose to continue watching stuff beyond our politics, stuff we never planned to practice. But this should be an intentional, informed sexual choice. This begins by examining our search bars, finding our collective dignity. It could also include writing ourselves into original erotica and porn scripts, trying out some new pornographic narratives that are fully feminist so that we can experience sexy content without some built-in cost of collaborating in our own impression. So kind of like the biggest thing I got from this is like, it's not wrong to watch like fucked up shit on porn. Like it's all a part of our like sexual imagination. But it's like, let's not do it mindlessly and like let it control us and like give us nightmares, not speaking for myself, like things like that, because it does affect your brain. Like if you're watching CNC every fucking night, like it is going to affect you a little bit. Like I'm not saying it's wrong, but like you need to do it like intentionally and like do the work to figure out why you like it, why it empowers you, why all of these things. And like writing yourself into some erotic porn, like bitch, we do that in our heads. Like when we create scenarios, like that is so important too. So I just, I just love this book.
No, because I feel you, because like reading this and like thinking about it, it's like it goes two ways for me, because even doing the Gender Wars episode that comes out tomorrow, like there was a divide, I think, in third wave
that comes
wave
out
feminism.
Tomorrow. We're recording it tomorrow.
Right. We're recording
it. Doesn't come out tomorrow, guys.
We're recording tomorrow, the next week after this. But there was a divide in third wave. There was a divide in third wave feminism about like, porn and like sexuality and like all of those things. And it's like reading this, part of me is like, oh, does that mean like the porn that I watch has to be feminist? And it's like, to a degree, it's like, no, it doesn't have to be, because I do believe in CNC and like all of that stuff. But it's like,
and that could be feminist too. It just depends.
But you have to believe, like, exactly, like our dark romance episode is a good example of this, right? Like you have to understand, because even both of us have had like toxic, bad sexual fantasies that have caused us to feel a lot of shame around them until we explore it more and are like, why do we like this? Why are we into it? Okay, this is a catharsis. Okay, this is da-da-da. And then you unlearn that. And it's like, okay, like, that's so much work, right? Like, I'm just trying to get off right now. Like, I'm just trying to fucking, like, come, have an orgasm, like, whatever. And, like, I wish that men would do that more. But I think the more we break down women like Lily Phillips, breaking down that this is, like, a fantasy and that this is work and all of those things, it leaves the opportunity for that to happen. So, like, yeah.
Oh, God, you're killing it this episode.
I'm so fucked up.
No, bitch. Like, you're, like, able to, like, fucking articulate it into words, and I struggle with it so much. And, like, I really, like, so thank you, VG. Basically, before we wrap up, we're just going to read our listener stories. Like, we got a lot, and, like, it just felt like a lot to work them in throughout. So, like, we're just going to read them back to back. And, like, seriously, thank you, everyone, so much for, like, submitting and supporting and all of that.
The level of access some men feel entitled to with sex workers on social media is disturbing.
There are a lot of people glamorizing this exploitative and abusive industry.
Porn has always been accessible to young women, but now you get recruited through DM instead of actually having to submit an audition. But online platforms like X it's extremely scary and persuasive to young women.
Like, that one's kind of tea, because, like, yeah, you literally can just get recruited from a DM, and it's like, or like on the street with Bonnie Blue or something. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not signing consent or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt the same about the first one, how it's like men feel entitled to sex workers on social media.
Ugh.
And then you think about Bonnie Blue, though, that's like giving them the open door to be entitled to her shit. Like, come fuck me.
But it's like, men feel entitled to sex workers on social media, but it's like, and I'm not saying that you say this, obviously, but like, that's not the OnlyFans girls' fault that they're feeling that way. Like, that's fucking patriarchy and like all that shit. In worst case scenarios, it created a warped view on women, sex in general, and easy accessibility can birth porn addictions in the youth. In best cases, it creates a sex positive world, and we can create an avenue for safe sex education, like meaning like the integration of social media.
Yeah, it's like best case, worst case. Like, we don't know. We got to create it.
Right.
Next person said, porn should be fucking illegal. Shit's horrible for the young minds. Stats on it are crazy.
Anyways, moving on. I'm addicted to both, so makes sense. Meaning social media and porn. IDK why people put blame on OF. I've had a sex addiction since I was 12. And OF ain't get popular until COVID.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like, people blame OnlyFans, but it's been around.
Sex addiction since you were 12. I feel you, girl.
Yeah.
It's a hard knock life. Yeah.
It's always been connected. People are just catching on and are uncomfortable. Yep.
I think as long as women are safe and thriving, fuck anything else, honestly.
Love that. Professionally, it empowers creatives by giving them more control over their career. Yep.
Like, you know, with that, like,
more
you can direct to the show more. Yeah, exactly. Best to protect the youth and educate them so they don't feel obligated to follow suit. And, like, this one I feel two ways, because, like, I don't think it's a bad thing for sex workers to say, like, you don't need to do what I do. Like, this is not always easy all the time. But at the same time, it's like, it's always like we should protect the youth. Like,
No. I am all for best to educate the youth.
Right.
My problem is protect the youth. When we say protect, I'm like, what the fuck do we mean? Because if by protect we mean we are protecting them from ideologies and the fact that this is a profession and all of that, again, going
and, like,
back
shielding them.
Yeah, and going back to our purity episode last week, bro, like, and I was talking about this in a TikTok I just recorded that I still have to edit and figure out what I'm gonna say, but I'm like, I knew what a virgin was when I was like 5 years old because of where I was going to school. And like the Bible.
Hello?
I knew so I knew about sex when I was 5 years old in that context of like purity. So it's like when we're talking about protecting, like, to me, if we're talking about sex work as work, that destigmatizes things, that gives more credit to women, that is less misogyny, less patriarchy. So like the word protect is a little weird to me. Educate, I agree with.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next one, the ease of access to hardcore porn for children is horrendous and damaging. Was for me too, and born in the 90s. Yeah, this, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm kind of like, yeah, it's a different episode, honestly. Like, we can deep
we
dive
need
like
to
porn
do a
and porn addiction
at some point, yeah.
Because obviously people, you know,
yeah,
they
people
have
feel
opinions.
People
right.
feel away.
Okay, so now we're gonna end the episode and wrap up the episode with saying what we're wet, dry, and still a little bit confused about the topic. So I will go first. Like, honestly, it's corny, but like I love doing sex work episodes. Like, these are the episodes that like motivate me and like don't stress me out, and like I'm like fully enjoying myself the whole time. So like I'm just like glad that like A, I'm like brave enough to do it. Like B, like obviously shit's happening. Like even though Bonnie Blue like fuck that bitch, like that's just one bitch that I chose to, because it's kind of like I felt two ways about it.
Yeah.
And they were friends, but like there's so many other things we could be talking about. Like, the industry definitely is changing, and it's not just, like, because of OnlyFans. Like, the world is changing, and, like, I do think, like, people are feeling more empowered than ever to, like, speak out about it, like, on TikTok. Like, that was not a thing 3-4 years ago. Like, whatever. So, like, I like that the porn industry is becoming like mainstream social media, humanizing it. Like, I like that. Like, that's wet. Like, that is what I'm here for. And like really wet about the book, obviously, and that like I decided to read it after owning it for like 5 years.
Yes.
But honestly, it's like I don't think I like, not saying I wasn't pro sex work, but it's like I definitely got this book like before I was a stripper. Like I've had this book for a while, and so I think I might have. Because I definitely did. Like, a bunch of these, like, there's a bunch of things highlighted, but it was all, like, more about, like, feeling good about your body and, like, embracing your pleasure, not centering men's pleasure. Like, I completely didn't even, like, realize the sex work chapters.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, like, what the fuck? Like, they're, like, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. But I'm, like, really wet about that. And I know that you say like you learned everything from like Black queer feminists, and like you did, and they've been on that shit. But like when I say like I'm proud of you because of like your experiences and like you're able to talk about that. And like I'm proud of me too. Like this is like definitely something like really close to our hearts. Like it hits, and it's like,
and I
that's
said
why
that
like
to you the other day. I'm like, and this might be personal, but you have come so far. Like because this
like
is
I don't even,
hard,
I'm like
and your
fine.
ability to talk about it, like you know,
Like-
because the shame and like everything else. It's like whether you think it or not. Because I know all the time you say like, oh, I was so privileged to grow up with 2 moms and all of this, but that doesn't diminish the other ways in which you experience shame as a woman, and maybe even more so because you grew up with a mom that was so queer centered that the idea of like the men, you know what I'm saying? So like the way that you're able to talk about it now, like I am just so proud of you and how far you've come.
Yeah,
you know?
and I feel like it's like cool too because it's like we weren't really talking about like our personal experiences in this episode. Like I could have said a lot more, but it's like talking about other people's experiences and honestly just like looking at sex work like through an intersectional like feminist, Black feminist, womanist lens. Like that has been the most healing thing for me. Like even out of just like, cause like at the end of the day, it's like I don't really know how much I want to spill to the internet, and not because I'm embarrassed, because like I just want to keep some things for me. Like, you know what I mean? Like to help people in like other conversations and like to validate someone else, I would. But like on the internet, I'm like, I don't really think that's what I'm like here to give the world, is to like share my like, you know, like deep secrets.
And I feel you because I
like
teeter on that line too, because it's like part of me is like I feel like I should share more to destigmatize it, but then the other part of me is like I feel like I shouldn't to protect myself. Right. So it's like, you know, like balancing that line.
It's like
it's
we
like
need to educate in a
but
way.
But you should always listen to yourself first. So it's
and like what you feel good
about.
Exactly.
But
yeah. Overall, just like wet about the episode. Like I'm fucking wet that Lily fucking Phillips fucked 101 men back to back, didn't get any UTIs. Like she's that girl, and I'm fucking wet. What about you?
No, same. I am so wet about Lily Phillips. Like honestly, I think she is doing a lot, and for her to be so young and to, you know, I can still see the ways in which she's finding herself with her different appearances on the podcast, but I feel like the way that she showed up on the feminist podcast and like how she's carrying herself in her vlogs and everything like that, I'm like, she is going to be someone. She already is somebody. Like I am rooting for her 100%, and I am like very excited to see what she does next. I want to watch the video too. I want to watch.
I know, like there should be like a documentary about. Like,
I might look it up tonight. I feel like I'm not going to be able to masturbate to it though, because I'm going to be analyzing it from like a podcast lens.
Dude, literally. I'm like, should we have watched it and like provided like scene descriptions?
But I'm definitely wet about her. Again, like also very wet about pleasure activism. Like I'm, like you said, like I'm just so wet about like the ways in which, again, Black queer feminists, sex positive feminists have like paved the way for a lot of what I think about sex work and stuff today. And I think like the basis of it is what got me into sex work, and that was like misguided. Not like it wasn't enough there, but like the more that I learned after, like every single time I read something, I'm like, it is the missing piece in my brain to like put it all together. So I'm like, anytime that I feel like someone is like, if you claim to be a feminist and you're still confused about this whole conversation, I really urge you to look at what Black queer feminists were saying in like the 1980s, because it still holds true, and then also look at what's being said today. I swear to God, these bitches were so ahead of the fucking curve.
No, it's it's
and like black trans women too. Like, again, because. And there's a whole documentary, guys. I forget the name of it, but it's on Hulu. I think you have to pay extra.
Oh,
on
yeah.
Amazon, about black trans women sex workers. But like, there's a lot out there, and that's the other thing that I'm what about. Like, even like I had a moment when you were reading that Glamour article where I was like, wow, like the fact that they are talking about this woman and this situation that's going viral on social media so negatively, and they end the article with saying, you know, sex work's not bad, blah, blah, blah. I was like, this is so different than what it would have been, and we have come so far.
So true.
You know,
like,
because
Glamour is like hella, like it could be conservative for all I know.
Yeah, like when we started, it was like becoming cool or normal, but it was still very taboo. And like,
I know.
It
What the
still
fuck?
feels extremely taboo, especially when we look at like the predominant male narratives about stuff, even though we have fucking Donald Trump as like, it's, you know.
It depends on the space you're in, like whether it's like accepted or not, and like very few spaces like
Well,
accepted.
and I was telling Autumn, like I recently had an experience with like a woman that I met that was a feminist. And I thought she is an intersectional feminist. And then I was talking to her about what I do with the podcast, and I was telling her about my history in sex work, and she was very much like turned off by it, and it ended the conversation.
And you were like,
and she like, you know, left, and I was kind of like, like I forget sometimes,
like
because
heard
like
you, like that's
you know what
crazy.
I'm saying? Like I
you
realize
forget.
it when I'm around like the average person, because the average person's feminism is to the extent of TikTok. But like when you meet a woman that is in the academic sphere, like in intersectional, you expect them to include sex work, but they so often don't. So I'm like, what the fuck? But definitely very, very, very wet about all of that. I'm wet about this conversation. I feel like this was a fun episode. So
yeah. And for dry, like I really don't want to harp too much on dry, because like I do want to keep the positive things up. Like I definitely included some like hate in this video for us to like understand like the reality, but like I did really want to like center on pleasure activism, because I want to like uplift like sex workers and like women and femmes and like everyone, like, you know, like we can talk about this in a positive way, like no one else is, but like definitely dry about like all the people blaming OnlyFans creators for the porn addiction. Like it's laughable, bro. And like those YouTube videos I watch where they're just like absolutely like being so mean and cruel and like stigmatory, is that a word? Like, yeah, like that thing, like towards Lily Phillips and like all of that shit. Like that was honestly hard to watch. And like as someone that like was a sex worker, like it's really hard to watch. Like I'm just like, that's so fucking mean. Like it
adds to the shame, and it adds to like we said, the aftercare, like what keeps you up at night.
Right.
Like, you know, when you're trying to go to sleep and you think about every bad thing that you've ever done, and like whatever, that's what adds to it, you know?
And I do think the driest thing about all of this, like, really is the like people that claim to be intersectional feminists that like absolutely like without a fucking hesitation go right to misogyny, like when it comes to a sex worker, like every single fucking
and then
time.
point to the sex workers as pygmies when like low-key they're being pygmies. Like we're missing the point.
So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I will say I am dry about Bonnie Blue. It's weird because I had come across her on TikTok, and I had seen one of her videos, I think about fucking like 20-something guys or whatever, and I like fucks with her. But I didn't know like the whole story, because it's rare that I see a sex worker like come up on my TikTok. But like overall, I think she's predatory. I think she's problematic. I think blaming women for the reason that their men are going to strip clubs is very, very toxic. I think like going to college campuses, all of that is very toxic, and I don't want to condone that. And I think, you know, like throughout history, throughout movements, there has always been a fear of criticizing certain shit to, you know, in hopes that the movement will keep going forward, because we don't want to criticize this so that it keeps making the movement go forward. But I'm like, no, like she deserves to be criticized, and like I don't think she is part of the predominant narrative or like group of sex workers that are moving things forward. So I don't think she is like included in that. I think she is predatory. And so, bye, Bonnie Blue. I don't associate with you anymore. I'm very also dry about the porn addiction stuff. I think it's real. I think addiction of any sort is bad. I've struggled with addiction to certain things in the past, so I very much understand. I've had people very close to me struggle with addiction. So it is very real. But I also, because of that, believe that, you know, when you are struggling with addiction, the only person that can get you through that is yourself, and the willingness to want to get sober. So I don't think that it's necessarily blaming these platforms. I think there is work to do with like age guidelines and all of that, and that conversation is confusing. I think that makes for another episode that we should cover in the future. And I'm dry about the fucking hate towards Lily. Like, Lily is the sweetest little bitch. Like, hello, Lily. Like, I love you. Like, can we have you on the pod one day? Like, I used to live in London. Can I hit you up?
God.
Like, you are such a
dream.
sweetheart. Like, she is such a sweetheart. Like, she does not deserve any of the shit. Everybody projecting their own sexual issues, sexual trauma.
That was the whole
insecurities. The projections are insane, and it's just really fucking dry. It's dry as fuck.
Like, that was like one of my favorite parts of the book. Like, talking about like, tell me your fears of sex work, and I'll tell you your fears of like your own sex life. Because literally that. But for my confused, I feel like the sex industry is like, you know, evolving, booming, like doing all this stuff. And like, I'm definitely like curious and confused on like what the future is going to look like especially with like AI sex workers like coming up low key. Like,
I think it was our AI episode where we talked about
I feel like, definitely. But I feel like, I feel like it was like we did it again. Like,
we talked about porn recently.
Ago.
I'm like, what episode? I don't remember.
Yeah. See, guys, we're like throwing up too much content.
Like literally.
But yeah, like confused, curious, hopeful, also scared for like the future of the sex industry. And as we kind of touched on, like confused about my own thoughts, kind of like more so now about like the influencer to OnlyFans pipeline. It's like I don't know, like part of me is like, do I want sex work to like come organically within from everybody? But it's like, no, it's a job. Like if they want to make money, they should be able to do it, and we shouldn't be looking at them any certain way, like whether or not they believe in all the politics or they feel so deeply about it like I do. It's like, it's just a job. It's just like working at McDonald's. Like, why can't, like, more people should be doing it? Like, why the fuck not? So, like, confused about my feelings about that, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same about, I feel like I'm most confused about where OnlyFans marketing and pornography marketing show up in social media, because part of me is like, okay, algorithms are very much tailored to you. So if you're getting this shit on your algorithm, then you're probably watching a lot of porn.
Right. I don't get a lot.
Spheres. Yeah, I mean, I do, because I feel like I watch that shit on TikTok. I look for those types of topics. But it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a little confused about the lines, because I do think it is a concern for someone who doesn't want to see that, or someone who isn't in the right mindset or is too young. How do we address that? But I don't know. Like, I think there's a line, and I don't quite know what that is or where I'm at with that yet. I'm also confused about the Bonnie Blue situation, and I don't want to mean like her, because I in my mind, by the end of this episode, I've determined like I don't fuck with Bonnie Blue. What I am confused about, though, is some of the topics that she was discussing in terms of, you know, the barely legal situation, in terms of the, you know, your man is going to cheat regardless situation, not blaming the woman. I think that is completely dry. Like, I'm not for that.
But like men cheating regardless.
Yeah, but like in terms of like the ways in which a lot of times sex workers are labeled as pick-me's, or like proponents of the patriarchy, and like reinforcing patriarchy, or appealing to it by what they're doing by profession. And also the ways in which, like with Lily Phillips, your persona as a porn star might be different than you as a real person, and how to separate those. Right. So it's like that paradox of like this shit is already taboo and kink is a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Because like what you say, like say a CNC porn star goes on Good Morning Britain and is their full CNC persona. It's gonna shock people, and that's very like toxic. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like where kink meets reality, and where like the Disney episode that we did last week, where performer meets like real person. Like, where is that divide?
Yeah. Arguably, it's like you kind of do have to separate the identity because of the society that we're in. Like, how do you not do that? Yeah, I'm super confused about that shit too. And like, we've been on that journey since we were 18 years old. Like, to a lesser extent, we're not on Good Morning Britain, right? But we have our own lives, and we were acting accordingly.
And we do, and that's the thing.
And still today, we separate our shit.
There's a new documentary about social media and like that just came out, and I'm really excited to watch it. It's like teenagers during the pandemic on social media. It's like it's on Hulu and I think Amazon. I'll send it to you after this. But I was listening to I listened to the New Yorker like Critics at Large podcast, and they were talking about it like older people and like a more professional, high class.
I know what that podcast is actually.
Yeah, but you know what? They talk about things in a much more like
it's not really. I'm not their target audience.
But it's very interesting to think about because I do think our generation is very unique in the ways that we separate identity. Because we don't look. I think older generations look at social media as social. I'm connecting with my family members, my friends. I'm following funny accounts. Our generation, I think, is looking at social media in terms of family, friends, follow funny accounts, and also business. And I think that is something that like other generations can't relate to, and that's why we divide identities, because our corporate identity has to be different than our online identity because of the predominant culture. So like,
it should be called business media, not social media.
Like LinkedIn 2.0.
Like, honestly, but it's like, it's like that maybe we're able to like have that business so well because like some people still are just using it for social media. It's like not everyone uses it for business.
Both. But if you're in a city, because it's like, when I went on Thread, I never go on Threads. I always use Twitter, and I know we have to wrap up, guys. This is the last anecdote. But I went on Threads because I always use Twitter, and all of my threads, like the whole thing is like, need a model, looking for creators, looking for da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh my God, like Instagram is the new LinkedIn. Like Threads is the new LinkedIn. It's just for creatives. And a lot of it is scams too. But like, you know, we're in this weird
Threads
time.
Is different. No,
Threads is fucking different.
But yeah, so that about does it for this episode, guys. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought. If you learned anything, if you disagreed with anything, just what you thought overall. You can like the video on YouTube. You can follow us on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube, and all those little things that are super annoying and cringe to say, but it really helps us. So please do that. You can rate us on Spotify. Please, just fuck Apple and Amazon. Rate us on Spotify.
Apple's our best.
Apple's
doing
better
actually.
Than Spotify if you're on Apple right now listening, leave a review. It could be one word, baby girls, okay? It could be anything. So when I say girls, I mean everyone, okay? You get it, you get it. So yes, remember to do all that. Follow us on Instagram to participate in the polls and submit listener stories at So Wet So Dry. The O's are zeros. You can follow our personals too. Give us a like, see what we're up to. And Fiji, over to you.
Yes, we also have listener support. It's 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. Bitch, I'm drunk. I'm about to start an OnlyFans. Not actually, though, but I've been really reconsidering stripping lately. So please fucking subscribe to this shit, because you guys don't even understand how much of our time, energy, mental capacity that we pour into these outlines, and it's just crazy. So please subscribe. Please. But anyway, we love you guys so much, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Do y'all remember the Disney purity ring era? Because personally, I was obsessed with Disney Channel as a kid. I grew up in a non-religious household, and I had no idea about anything. A lot of people have made videos on this, but here's my take. During the 90s and 2000s, purity movements were everywhere.
from the silver ring thing, the True Love's Weight campaign, and it was literally trending to have a purity ring or a promise ring. Like if y'all remember people in school giving those to each other. Whether you were religious or not, the promise rings were a thing. I think Disney got lucky that the Jonas Brothers, Selena Gomez, Demi Lovato, Miley Cyrus, that they did have religious upbringings, and that was kind of one of the main reasons they got it. Disney latched onto it and was like, this is perfect. During this time, you had stars like Britney Spears, Lindsay Lohan that had connects to the Disney Channel, and they were making headlines for being problematic celebrities. Disney did not want Hannah Montana, Maddie from Sweet Life, Sharpay Evans to be these problematic celebrities. They would do anything to make sure that these stars remained like good children. The whole thing was a bunch of marketing to protect the Disney brand. The stars were always questioned about it, especially the Jonas Brothers. It seems like every interview they had during that time was about those freaking purity rings. But what about the impact on the stars, and not only the stars, but the viewers? Because people wanted purity rings because the Jonas Brothers had them, whether they were religious or not. And again, I did not grow up with a religious background. I don't want to hate on anyone that has or wants a purity ring. Like, do what feels best for you and your religion and all of that. But at the end of the day, these purity rings were in the media. It was all so public, and everyone was talking about these 15-year-old kids' sex lives, whether they should be having sex or not. I watched an incredible YouTube video by Cheyenne Lynn called Purity, Shame, and Surgery, How Hollywood Warps Our Perception of Puberty. And in it, she talks about how they were trying so hard to make their stars seem pure and innocent. It actually just made them talk about sex 10 times more. So many other stars like Russell Brand would joke about getting these purity rings off of their fingers so they could ultimately take their virginity. So while Disney was like, everyone wears purity rings, like we're all gonna be wholesome, everyone's still talking about sex and like how these stars aren't having sex. Like, it doesn't matter if you had sex or not, like they're talking about it. And this obviously ended up with a lot of trauma and shame with Disney stars and also viewers watching. And you think about it in the context of now with all the celibacy movements and boy sober and 4B, people not only ruling off men, but ruling off sex. If you're a straight individual that wants to be boy sober and 4B, I mean, that's ultimately a celibacy movement too. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to be celibate and all of those things. But it's just interesting to think about how our culture constantly has these purity movements that centers sex, celibacy, virginity, and all of those things. So if any of this piqued your interest, my best friend Fiji and I have a podcast called So Wet, So Dry, where we talk about sex, relationships, and personal identity, internet culture, reality, and how they collide. So we just did an episode on the Disney purity ring era, purity movements of the 90s, and overall the objectification of puberty. That episode is out now everywhere. Link in bio. We are So Wet, So Dry on all platforms. The O's are zeros. And let me know what you think. Like, what do you all think about this?